I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. All right. Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. My special guest tonight is Caleb Maupin. He is a journalist, an author, a political analyst. He's been on the show before. Welcome back, Caleb.
Sure. Glad to be here. How you been?
I have been great. I've been very busy. I know you have too. In the past, when you've come onto the show, you've come here under better circumstances. So you reached out, and I wish I could say I was surprised this is happening, but considering all the censorship that's been going on the past couple of years, I'm not surprised by this at all. But for those who are not aware, apparently you wrote a book about Kamala Harris, and it was published in 2020. So for all these years, that book has been available. That's the one, Kamala Harris and the Future of America. And from what I understand now, all of a sudden that book is not available on Amazon anymore. Let's hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I wrote the book 4 years ago. The publication date was August 31st, 2020. It went up. It got a review in the Morning Star, which is a communist newspaper in Britain. It got a review in a couple newspapers in India. A lot of people liked it. I was invited to speak to some web conferences. We were in the lockdown pandemic at that time. And that was that, And so it's been up there, and every so often I'd sell one. It sold a couple hundred, maybe up to 500 at the most, right, in the last 4 years. Not a huge seller. So anyhow, Sunday, Joe Biden finally decides he is going to step down out of the race. Monday, the media is giving Kamala Harris the treatment as the presumptive nominee. And I think, okay, might be an uptick in sales. And around 7:26 p.m. on Monday, I got an email from Amazon saying that there was an issue with the cover of my book. And I thought, okay. And so it said in the form email I got that if I wanted to address the issue of the cover of my book, I could, send them a certified letter saying that I owned the copyright to the cover, or I could just upload a new cover. And so I thought, well, I don't want to miss the moment. Kamala Harris has just become the presumptive nominee. So I immediately went in and I put a blank cover on it. Right? Because I did not, this cover, there is no issue with it. It was designed by Arthur Porter, who's credited on the back. It's original artwork. Like, this is a legit cover. But regardless, I figured I don't want to get into a back and forth with them. I want this book on the web right now because this is the moment. So I re-uploaded it with a completely blank cover, rejected. Re-uploaded it again, blank cover, rejected. I re-uploaded it with a blank cover 6 times. It has been rejected each time. What I also noticed was that, and this is where it gets interesting, is generally, if you sell books on Amazon and there's an issue with them, when they're waiting for you to work out that issue, what happens is the book will still be up there. It'll just say currently not available. You've probably seen that before. Yeah. That's not what happened this time. If you go to the page where this book was once for sale, it says, sorry, can't find it. Has a little picture of a cute little puppy. And this book has been completely scrubbed from Amazon.com. Goodreads still has all the reviews that are up there, and it got glowing reviews. Everyone who read it loved it. But Amazon, you can't read the reviews. You can't see the ratings. It doesn't exist. This book has been completely scrubbed from everything on Amazon. So I immediately tweeted about it. Max Blumenthal followed up, and others. And this looks like a blatant case of censorship. So I put the book up on Lulu.com, and it was on there starting Monday night. It was on Lulu.com. And then Thursday, all of a sudden, people started texting me and tweeting at me that they tried to buy the book on Lulu, but it wouldn't process their credit card information. And that was last night. So I emailed Lulu. I said, "What's the issue?" It's still up on Lulu, but anyone who tries to buy it, if they try to buy it with their credit card or with their PayPal, it says could not process credit card, could not process with PayPal. So you can't buy it on Lulu anymore. So right now it's for sale on Gumroad, I think it's called. Yeah, and you can get the PDF file. You just pay $10, PDF file right there. You can download it. That's the way I've been selling it. And I will say I have sold thousands because there's a huge amount of outrage going on right now about this. And it's funny because, I'm just this, guy on the internet. I do reporting for RT and all of that. I don't have a huge following, but there is now more interest in this book than ever before because they chose to do this. People are like, what was it in this book that was so damaging that Kamala Harris's team, as soon as she's the presumptive nominee, this book gets pulled immediately? Like, this is bizarre, isn't it?
It's bizarre, and also it's ridiculous. Like, this is an attack on free speech. Like, people don't have to agree with what you wrote in that book, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that people don't have the right to read it. And this is what bugs me about censorship and this idea of free speech. A lot of people that I've spoken to that say they're free speech absolutists, it comes to find out that they're not really free speech absolutists. They're just free speech about the issues that they approve of or that they agree with. But when it's something they don't agree with, all of a sudden they want it taken down. So yeah, this is a big problem. So this happened after she was announced as the nominee.
Yeah. Monday, Sunday, Joe Biden dropped out. Monday, she was the presumptive nominee. Mainstream media went into overdrive about "We Love Kamala," and that's when my book got pulled. That is weird because it's been available for 4 years prior. They say it's an issue with the cover, but they won't let me re-upload it with a blank cover. So it's clearly not an issue with the cover. And every time I re-upload it, it just shoots it right back to me. So something's clearly going on. And the Lulu thing is also a little bit mysterious because people were buying it, by the thousands on Lulu. I mean, it was blowing up. After I went on a number of shows and there was a lot of outrage from folks. And so I'll be talking to an attorney. One thing that's been pointed out is this may be an FEC violation on Amazon's part when they are, as a major book dealer, if they are shutting down books that are critical of one candidate while allowing all kinds of books that are critical of another candidate, that's electoral interference. One thing I will throw out there is that, I wrote this book in August 2020, and I do work at RT, and I have met the Russian president. I have spoken with him and been in his presence a number of times. And, I'm sure that the next shoe that will drop is that this is Russian propaganda. Well, I'm an American citizen. I was born in Ohio, and nobody in Russia or no Russian citizens, no Russians had anything to do with this book. In fact, if I had talked to my Russian friends that I work with about this, they probably would have urged me not to do it. They probably would have said, don't rock the boat. Don't cause a stir. Just get the job done. And, they wouldn't have wanted me to do this. So the idea that this is some kind of Russian conspiracy, I'm sure that's the next card to be played, and it's wrong. It's not.
So I guess what I'm curious about is, do you know if Jeff Bezos or if Amazon, the company, donated any money to Kamala Harris's campaign? And I asked that because I know Netflix did.
It seems pretty blatant. If Washington Post is owned by Bezos as well. Washington Post has a very, very pro Kamala Harris, anti-Trump slant that many people have commented on. Amazon is pretty solidly in the anti-Trump camp, and they have been since he was in office. I mean, so there's no question about that. What I find interesting is that there was a book. There are, first of all, let me talk about why I wrote the book, because this is not just a partisan hit piece, right? Kamala Harris and the Future of America is not just a partisan hit piece. I'm above that, right? I used Kamala Harris to make 3 political points. It's an essay in 3 parts, making 3 political points about a lot more than Kamala Harris. I talk about CIA meddling in leftist politics and how Kamala Harris grew up in the counterculture New Left of Berkeley. And there's a lot of CIA activity, putting drugs into leftist circles and things like that. And how, there's a cultural center that she went to that was probably set up to counter the Black Panthers because the Black Panthers were so popular in Oakland. There was like a cultural nationalist Black cultural center that she talks about in her autobiography. I talk about Donald Harris, her father, which nobody talks about. And that's what really inspired me to write the book, because you remember when Barack Obama was running for president, we knew everything there was to know about him. His mother, his father, his school he went to, his pastor. No one knows anything about Kamala Harris. She was in Congress. She's great, and that's all anyone knows about her. Well, her father, Donald Harris, is a Marxist economist. He taught at Stanford University for many years. Now he's retired. He's 85 years old, and he lives in Jamaica, where he's from. He and her are estranged from one another. He did not attend her inauguration as vice president. He denounced her 2020 presidential campaign. And there's a lot of baggage there. And no one's talking about this. And when I encountered someone that I encountered who had worked with him professionally as an academic, and they told me about who her father was and how they don't speak to each other, I thought there's a story here. So I started doing research, and I want to credit everything in here is cited. I cite Reason magazine, their great research about what a vicious prosecutor she was. I cite his own essay, Reflections of a Jamaican Father, which is very poignant. I mean, I encourage people to go and read. You can find it online, Reflections of a Jamaican Father by Donald Harris. It is one of the most poignant pieces ever. And I think there's a lot of hints in the essay, things that he doesn't exactly come out and say, but he's kind of hinting at what's going on there. That's very interesting. He drops a lot of hints in the essay. And I talk about that. And then in the third section, I talk about how it's very clear that she is the chosen successor of Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton ran the State Department in Barack Obama's first term, and the results of that were catastrophic for the world. Libya, the most prosperous African country, was destroyed. Syria was reduced to a civil war, and there's a lot of people in the Pentagon and in the military that don't want another Arab Spring, that don't want the Hillary Clinton faction running the executive branch any longer, and that's why Tulsi Gabbard used her limited time on the debate stage to go after Kamala Harris in the 2020 campaign, because there are divisions among the military and among the elite, and that Kamala Harris represents the Hillary Clinton faction. That's what my book says. 133 pages, not a huge, tome. It's just, a short essay in 3 parts, and it says a lot about a lot of things. And what I think is interesting is that they find this so threatening. And I've had to talk to a lot of people, like, why did they do this? Like, why did they want this book taken down? And it occurred to me that, well, first of all, this is criticism of Kamala coming from the left. I'm somebody who's been a socialist and an anti-war activist my entire life. So I'm not coming at this as some Republican, oh, she's a commie, traitor to the country, moves. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that she works for people who want regime change wars, that she's a ruthless prosecutor who destroyed the lives of all kinds of people and was a builder of the mass incarceration system. In addition to that, the issue of the fact that she hates her father and the way that she has this, real desire for vengeance. Her mother can do no wrong. Her mother is a saint. Her father, she wants nothing to do with. She rarely invokes him. The tension between the two of them, that is something that doesn't exactly match the narrative that she's trying to present. Of herself. She's trying to present herself as being a friend of Black Lives Matter, as a friend of the African-American community. That doesn't match her record as prosecutor. And that also doesn't match the record of, her relationship with her Jamaican father. So the more you dig into things, you can see that Kamala Harris and the narrative we're getting about her family right now and where she came from and her role as a vicious prosecutor in Oakland and the Bay Area, as well as California State Attorney General, the things that she has done are utterly horrendous. And she's not who they're trying to tell us she is. She is absolutely not that.
That is correct. Another thing I want to mention too, I want to get back to the father. It was brought to my attention that his Wikipedia page has also been edited heavily since the announcement of her nomination. I don't know what that's all about. But from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, from what I understand, the parents were divorced when she was, I think, 5 years old. And she lived with the mother. So the mother raised her and her sister. And it seemed like there was no connection to the father at all. And, we can't always help these things. I mean, it's not uncommon for me to hear that someone is not close to members of their family. Things happen and we never really know sometimes. But what was kind of weird to me was that what you just said about he did not support her running for president. That's kind of weird.
That's an understatement. It's not that he didn't support it. He actually denounced it. So during her 2020 presidential campaign, she went on the Breakfast Club radio program, and they asked her if she'd ever smoked marijuana. And she laughed about it. Oh, and absolutely she did. And they asked her, what were you listening to while you smoked weed? And she said, oh, had to be Snoop or whatever, which people are looking at the timeline. That doesn't line up because Snoop Dogg had never released an album at the time that she was in college smoking weed. So that must not have happened. And it's also a little bit hypocritical because she imprisoned so many people for smoking marijuana, for her to just laughingly say that without any, not like, oh, I regret it or no, nothing like that. Just, oh, of course. And then she follows up with, half my family's from Jamaica. What do you think? And that is what set off Donald Harris. And if you read his Reflections of a Jamaican Father, you'll understand why. He then came forward and he said he wanted to separate her entire Jamaican family from what he called a travesty of identity politics. And he hated the stereotype of Jamaicans as joy seekers and lazy pot smokers, etc. And then if you read his essay, it looks an awful lot like Kamala lied in her autobiography. Now, she wrote an autobiography called The Truths We Hold. And in that autobiography, she talks about her parents' divorce. She says the only thing that they fought over was the books. Oh, that sounds sweet, right? They only fought over the books. Well, according to Donald Harris, they fought over something else, which was her and her younger sister, and who would get custody. There was an ugly custody battle. And Donald Harris believes the stereotype of him as a Caribbean man, as a black man, the stereotype that black men don't make good fathers, et cetera, was used against him and prevented him from getting custody and the ability to see his daughter and be part of their lives. And he uses some pretty intense language to describe how insulted he was by the entire proceeding. But basically, the courts saw him as a black man, and he did not get custody of his daughters, I should say. And he talks about that. It's a particularly painful point because, keep in mind, Donald Harris, this man taught at Stanford University. He's Dr. Donald Harris with a PhD. He was an advisor to presidents of Jamaica, right? So the fact that this stereotype of, this is a black man, this is a man from the Caribbean, he must not be a good dad, we'll give it to the mother, that particularly hurts, right? And so for her to invoke that stereotype when trying to gain credibility when describing smoking marijuana, that's something that just didn't sit well with him. And that reveals a lot. It reveals quite a bit. And his essay, Reflections of a Jamaican Father, which I quote, is very interesting. And again, a lot of hints, a lot of things he won't come out and say. He will not do interviews. Trust me, I've looked into this, and he will not do interviews. But in that essay, he hints at various things. One thing he talks about is that he's very sad that Kamala never met her grandmother. Because her grandmother was a member of parliament. His mother was a member of parliament in Jamaica from the Labour Party and was a socialist, but he also describes various aspects of her mother as like an example of what a strong black female leader might be, which I thought was very interesting. He describes Kamala at one point. It's really just sad. Like one of the last times he saw her, and her younger sister, and how he filmed them running up and down a hill in the countryside of Jamaica, and how he's watched that film over and over and over again as he missed her and stuff. It's very sad. I encourage people to read it. I quote it all in my book.
This is really interesting. I've heard a number of stories. I know also at one point she was living in Canada. I think that's primarily where she grew up, not so much Oakland as she says. So
those
that's
are the high school years. And she never talks about that. And it's just a huge blank spot in all of her autobiographies. I have heard rumors that something bad happened to her when she was in high school, but I cannot confirm that. So I'm not going to report that because I can't confirm that. But it's weird. Her autobiography goes over her childhood in Oakland, going to the Black Cultural Center and singing in performances there and et cetera. And then, the whole Quebec thing is just completely left out. What is clear, what she is very blatant about, her mother is a saint. Her mother can do no wrong. Her mother, is the ideal figure. And her father, yeah, he exists. Moving on. That's kind of how she talks about these things. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Kamala Harris sees herself as a victim, right? There has never been a political leader in our time that invokes their own childhood as much as Kamala Harris does. T-shirts, that little girl was me. Stories about things that happened to her when she was a child, right? I mean, it is deeply unhealthy, right? She is well over 50 years old. I'm not going to say what her age is, but I mean, T-shirts with her childhood, 10-year-old face on it. She's talking about, stories of this that happened from her childhood, that happened from her childhood. Her latest thing is, people making fun of her laugh. Well, she was bullied for her laugh when she was a child, and that's so horrible. And it's her mother's laugh, and she loves her mother, and her mother is so it's really unhealthy. If someone's talking about their childhood so much, that's unhealthy. And what's weird is the childhood comes out when she's justifying doing bad things, like locking up parents for truancy. She gets up in this famous clip. She says, I wouldn't be anywhere if it wasn't for my education. So that's why I started prosecuting parents for truancy. And then she starts giggling her head off about, throwing low-income parents in jail, or at least threatening to, because their kids miss school. And she's laughing her head off about it. And she talks about how, I had a big stick as prosecutor. I have a big stick, and I'm going to use my big stick. And it's just like, this is a really, really unhealthy woman who wants vengeance. She clearly wants vengeance. She sees herself as a victim. The world has been unfair to her, which it has. Okay, I'm not denying. I think some pretty awful things did happen to her. And I empathize with her on that regard. But I don't think her desire to take revenge on the world and let the whole world know that that little girl was her, I don't think that belongs in the Oval Office. That's my position.
Yeah, and another thing I want to mention as well, she targeted, for people that don't understand, I've explained this on the show multiple times before, but she heavily locked up Black parents. And it just, I mean, this is not something that Kamala Harris can continue to lie about. This is why Tulsi Gabbard was able to kind of knock her out when she talked about her record during the 2020 Democrat debates, because a lot of people didn't know about that. Because a lot of people just didn't do their research. Even some people now are telling me they didn't know about that. So that is one of the damning things. I think that she's going to have to try to find a way to defend. And yes, and she talks about, and she says that she prosecuted, criminals and all that kind of stuff. Yes, she did, but she also put parents in jail. So Kamala Harris, she targeted the Black working class. And so when people say, well, yes, we need to support Kamala Harris because she's going to help the working class, she is not a friend of the working class. You cannot take the parent out of the home. And if you've never grown up in that type of environment, or you don't understand that, when you take the parent away from those kids, and a lot of these single parents, you take the parent away, the kid is put in the system. So, and you can imagine how their life ends up from there. So there's no excuse for that in my book. And Kamala needs to find a way to explain why she did that, because when she talks about her prosecutor record, she doesn't mention the truancy. She talks about how she locked up drug offenders and that type of thing. But the truancy thing is very important because she took Black parents out of the home.
Well, let's quickly go over it. 2004, Kevin Cooper is hours away from getting lethal injection, the death penalty. And the governor of California says, we'd really like to get some DNA evidence to make sure he's actually guilty of the crime. And her office steps in and fights and tries to resist getting DNA evidence. Well, they're overruled. The execution is stopped. That's pretty blatant, right? That's pretty big. Why would you not want DNA evidence to make sure that someone's guilty of the crime before you give them the death penalty? So that's pretty big. Next thing, 2013, she's speaking at Chicago Ideas Forum. And she begins her speech by walking around the stage mocking protesters, saying, build more schools, less jails, build more schools, less jails. And you can tell she hates folks who call for building more schools and less jails. And she just has utter contempt for them. She's just making fun of the people that she's now trying to claim as her own, the people that have been opposing the police state and mass incarceration. That happened as well. The other thing.
Just FYI, she's making fun of protesters right now.
Around Palestine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So for her to try and claim that, she's leading this movement or something like that, that's absurd. The other things that have come up is that her office on multiple occasions argued for keeping people locked up who were going to be released based on the fact that the state could save money with their cheap labor pool. And that was a position that was argued. People were being released, and before judges, they're saying, well, don't let them out because we can pay them 8 cents to 37 cents an hour. And if we have to hire a normal government employee, we'll have to pay them benefits and a decent wage and all of that. So let's keep people in jail because we can use their labor. What kind of ethical argument is that, right? That people should remain locked up because we can use their labor and exploit their labor. I mean, that is beyond unethical. And Reason magazine has talked about this. One of the things that I keep coming back to is this drug lab scandal. I mean, look into the drug lab scandal. There's a drug lab that, people that are charged with crimes during the court proceedings or whatever, they take drug tests. There's a drug lab that's turning over false positives, and people are being, it's saying that they had drugs in their system when they didn't. And she knows that it's turning over unreliable and false positive results, but she does not tell the defense attorneys. They do not turn it over. And the courts in California in 2010 ruled that she violated the rights of at least 1,000 people. Over 1,000 cases were thrown out because of that. There were people that left jail, that were sitting in jail. And then when it finally was revealed that she'd been sitting on the fact that their drug results were not legit, they got released. I mean, at least 1,000 people. 1,000 cases were affected. 1,000 cases were dismissed because of this drug lab scandal. That's huge. And what kind of person would do that, right? I mean, you got false evidence against somebody and you cover that up because you want to lock them up, right? There's this indifference to other people's suffering. It doesn't really matter how other people suffer as long as she gets to be the center of attention, as long as she gets to feel like she's powerful and she's getting revenge for that little girl that was her, that no one was fair to. This is not a healthy person.
Yeah, another thing I want to mention here, and thank you so much for this, Shirley. I want to get your opinion about this, Caleb, because I was talking about this last night. Shirley said Kamala cannot and will not win in November. She is climbing a little bit in the polls. I mean, she's doing better than Joe Biden was doing in the polls. But what's your opinion about that?
I think Kamala Harris will lose. No question about it. First of all, the Electoral College, let's look at the states that matter. She's not popular in those states. And I also think that there's a lot of inflating going on. They have been trying to sell Kamala Harris. They've tried to reboot Kamala Harris so many times, and it just doesn't work. And she's not popular with the public, and she's also not popular with the people in her office. Her office is a revolving door. No one can stand working for her. And, since I wrote this book, everything I've said about her personality and all that is far beyond what I expected. I mean, the people that have resigned, the people that have quit, and part of the reason that they quit working for Kamala Harris is they say they don't want to be known as one of the Harris people because they have a horrendous reputation on Capitol Hill and in Washington, D.C. No one wants to be known as one of the Harris people because they're considered toxic. Biden's staff could not stand Kamala Harris's staff, right? And that nothing is ever her fault. Verbal abuse, tearing people down. I mean, she is not a fun person to work for, and people quit. They just can't stand to work for her any longer. She can't be popular with her own staff. She can't be popular with the American people. She's going to lose this election.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. And another thing that was kind of suspicious to me is all the money that she raised overnight, all the millions that just came pouring in. I wish people would raise that type of money for mutual aid and organizations and helping people, improve their communities instead of giving it to a candidate. All these corporations immediately got behind her. Wall Street got behind her just like that. Reid Hoffman, who I'm sure you're familiar with, billionaire. He was on the news talking about we got to get behind her. She'll be great for the tech industry. What does that mean? What does that mean? Because we know the censorship that's been happening under the Biden administration. So there's that as well. It's just really weird to me. Roland Martin got on Twitter and told everybody, you better get in line and get on board for Kamala Harris. They're already blaming Black men for choosing not to support Kamala Harris. This is crazy and wild.
It is. But, all this hysteria about Trump and saving our democracy. Look, I mean, when Donald Trump was president, how many Democrats did he imprison? 0. How many Republicans has Biden jailed? Hundreds. January 6th, the ridiculous sentences and all of that. Also, there's a case that is probably the most important case in this country that nobody is talking about. I mean, it should be front page news everywhere, which is the Uhuru 3. Jesse Neville, Amalia Shatella, and Penny Hess They are facing 15 years in prison. Their trial starts September 3rd, and they're not accused of committing any crime. They're accused of exercising their freedom of speech. And the Biden administration says that that is acting as a foreign agent. And they want to throw them in jail for this. And it's very serious. It's a very serious case. I intend to be in Florida the day their trial starts. I'm going to be in that courtroom supporting them. I have raised it at the United Nations, at press conferences, and this is the most important case. And I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. If mass incarceration, Kamala, becomes president of the United States. I mean, if she can't allow books on Amazon that criticize her, that sold a few hundred copies until now, what is she going to do to people who disagree with her? I mean, I think you should be more concerned about your freedoms and democracy fading under Kamala Harris than under Trump. No question about it.
Well, I don't agree with voting for the Democrats or the Republicans. I mean, that's me. I'll be voting third party. But I also noticed, too, her campaign, I'm starting to see similarities with Hillary Clinton's 2016. I've already seen the pictures of Kamala Harris and people, they have the font that says I'm with her. I'm like, oh, we're doing this again. A number of people have told me that they're going to support her because she's a woman. Some people told me they're going to support her because she's Black. She has no platform laid out yet. People just got on board and said, we don't care. She's not Trump. And it's really cringe, the machine that has been built around her. I want to get your opinion about some of the pro-Palestinian, activists and protesters are now also getting on board with the Kamala Harris campaign. The same people who I saw out in the streets that told me genocide is a red line, all of a sudden it's not a red line anymore because they think that Kamala Harris is the savior to this. And instead of Joe Biden, even though Kamala Harris gave a speech the other day that is very similar to what Joe Biden has said, over and over again about this issue with Israel and with Gaza. She is no different on Gaza than Joe Biden. She's still pro-Israel. She takes money from AIPAC. But all of a sudden, all these pro-Palestinian activists are just like, oh, it's okay. She's better than Joe. So all of a sudden, genocide isn't a red line anymore.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, Kamala Harris is pro-Israel, and Israel helped her rise up in politics. Back when I wrote the book in 2020, I interviewed Paul LaRudy, who is a longtime Bay Area pro-Palestine activist, and he went and met with Kamala Harris when she was the Attorney General in California. And the Palestine activists would go and meet with her, and she would just sit there and look at them. She would not ask them any questions. And she would just look at them, and then she would walk out of the room. And she was going on trips to Israel very frequently. Israel helped create Kamala Harris, so she is not anti-Israel. And this is some of the same, I don't know what you want to call it, smoke and mirrors that we saw under Barack Obama. Netanyahu, he is a particularly rude person, and he loves to have, Twitter wars, so to speak, with Democrats and with elected officials, especially elected officials that tend to be people of color, because Israel has a lot of racism in it, especially the settler community that Netanyahu draws a lot of his support from. So Netanyahu gets points for fighting with Kamala, for fighting with Obama, with his base. And Obama, especially with his middle name being Hussein and having gone to a Muslim school, he very much, a lot of his presidency was faking out the Muslim world like he could understand them and he was their friend, which he was not. So Obama gained by, from having the fake Twitter war, and the fight with Netanyahu. But aid to Israel continued. There was no restraint or holding back of anything Israel did under the Obama presidency. And I think we can expect the same with Kamala Harris. Yes, Netanyahu will insult her. He will disrespect her. She will not like him, and they will condemn each other, but the policies will remain the same. There's no question about it. Israel helped to create Kamala Harris. If you look at her career, I mean, she has been a pro-Israeli figure for quite some time.
I agree with you there. All right. I just want to remind everyone once again, you can buy Caleb's book here at calebmaupin.gumroad.com. And I'll put the link again in the chat. And this is the electronic copy.
Yep. That'll give you the PDF. Yeah.
Yeah. Because this is this is crazy because they actually made your book more popular.
I know. It's wild. It's wild. And I mean, the New Yorker article that came out today, if you look at it, it was largely a response to the book. They're trying to control the narrative. They said, well, Kamala Harris talks about her childhood, but not that much, more than any other politician I've seen. That was one line in it. They talk about, well, yes, Kamala Harris's father is a world-renowned Marxist, but I mean, it's like the New Yorker article is almost a response to the book. It's wild, but I think they expected that I would just throw up my hands and go, oh, they took my book down. Whoopsie daisy. I mean, no, I was going to raise the alarm about it. And so it's getting some attention. And, we've got plans for getting another print edition, circulated and such. We've got plans for it because, my organization, the Center for Political Innovation, we stand with the Uhuru movement, and everyone needs to know what's going on to them. The Democratic National Convention is coming up, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And, we have to oppose imperialism, this system where big banks and monopolies dominate the world and keep the world poor to make themselves rich. And Americans are ready to fight against that system, ready to stand with the people of the world against the big monopolies. So we've got a lot of work that needs to be done. And I think this book is part of that work.
Awesome. Caleb, where can people find your work?
Oh, I'm part of the Center for Political Innovation, cpiusa.org. That's where you can find all of our stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Caleb.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, that was Caleb Maupin again. Crazy censorship that's happening around here. Again, you don't have to agree with what people wrote, but to remove their work is just absolutely ridiculous. That book, again, is Kamala Harris and the Future of America. And you can find the PDF version here, an essay in 3 parts. I've already put that link in the chat there. This is crazy stuff, guys. It's already starting. I mean, this is, I thought I saw some things, 2016, Hillary versus Trump, but this is even crazier. So it has already gotten to that level. And I think people just need to keep their eye open and pay attention to what's happening. They're already doing the censorship. And Caleb's right. They will probably trying to find a way to say, oh, this person is a Russian asset or something like that. Just like 2016. It's crazy. It's wild. And I don't agree with it. Again, you don't have to agree with what someone wrote, but I don't think that people should be deplatformed. I don't think that, books should be banned. I just don't agree with that. If you got a problem with it, just don't read it. It's ridiculous. Yes, Lance, digital book burning. That's exactly this is crazy. It's wild, fam. It's wild. All right, let's get to some of the comments here, and then we'll shout out patrons, and we'll get into the other stories. Got some interesting stories tonight. There's also a poll. Go ahead and answer that poll question when you get the opportunity to do so. Thank you for the super chat, Mark Pugsley. Too many people supporting Kamala. Yeah, we'll see come November, Mark. We will see. Thank you for the super sticker, James Starks. Notori, what is his Twitter name? @Real Caleb Maupin. Lance, as an Oakland native, I can confirm Kamala is not a friend of the people here. You know what? I have to talk to some people in the O-Town. Thank you for the super chat, Baby Ethernet. Kamala never calls herself Black. I am suspicious. I know when she was elected to Senate, I know there was an interview and someone was asking her, how does it feel to be the first Black or whatever? And she said, I'm an American. I remember that. Thank you for this as well, Baby Ethernet. Roland Martin, white women answer the call. I saw that. That was cringe, right? I'm like, what are you doing? This is why people make fun of, and I have my criticism of the Republican Party too, but this is why people make fun of the Democratic Party the way that they do, because they go over the top with it. It's just crazy. Let's get the comment on Rockfin. Thank you. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin Hemp Car. Democrats love to say read banned books. Will they read Caleb Maupin's? Ooh. That is a good question. Will they? Will they? All right. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to Sabby patrons. Thank you guys so much for your support. You're out here doing the damn thing, holding down the fort all around me. I'm in a silly mood tonight, guys. Sorry. All right. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories here: Ultimate, Sabinators, Sabsters. Don't forget about those Sabbies as well. One day I'm going to update this and make this really pretty. I just I don't know. I'm trying to think of a way to make it more efficient, but I'll figure it out one day. And of course, members, thank you guys so much. Their names are listed here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen. And I want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up to Lee A. Royster in the house. Thank you guys so much. And welcome, guys. Welcome. All right. Let's go ahead and share that thumbnail, show you what we're going to talk about tonight. Interesting stories. I also have a bonus story, which I don't know if anybody has covered this because one of you guys sent this story to me and I was like, holy smokes, I got to talk about this. But what are we discussing tonight, ladies and gentlemen? Tonight, we're discussing Charlamagne the God backs Kamala Harris, and that is connected to the Black voter concession topic that I want to discuss tonight. The fact that we need to ask for concessions for our vote. So I'm going to get into that. We're also going to discuss the FBI director testimony. Now, this is around the Trump shooter. So you guys may know about this. Obviously, the Secret Service director, she resigned. She was pushed to resign. There was testimony there. And now there has been testimony from the FBI director that gives more detailed information about the shooter that I think is pretty interesting. So you're going to want to hear that. We're also going to discuss media pundits fail over Kamala. If you notice in that picture, there's Van Jones and that's Brian Kilmeade. So we're going to talk about how CNN and Fox News, how they are talking about this in such a way, Kamala's campaign, that I think is actually hurting both sides, hurting the Republican Party and hurting the Democratic Party. So we're going to get into that. And of course, Caleb Maupin was just here. And I have a bonus story for you about a New York judge that threatened to shoot teenagers. So that's the bonus story. Thank you. Shout out to those of you that sent that to me. That story is wild. And we got to talk about it here because this is a judge we're talking about. A judge. All right. If you're just joining, guys, don't forget to smash that like button. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. Let's get into it. We're going to start with the bonus story about the New York judge. So apparently, a New York state judge, this woman is facing removal from the bench after she threatened to shoot a group of Black teenagers at a high school graduation party. And I have that footage, fam. We have the video. Let's bring in the video. Shout out to Keith, who shared this on X. This is crazy. Her name is Erin Gall. So here is the video footage, and then we'll get into the details of the article that are calling for her removal. Listen to this.
We got to get these keys so we can get these guys out of here. All right. I'm just saying, I don't know if you got any more flashlights laying around. Yeah. Keys. They were scuffling and lost a whole set of keys.
Guess what? They're not going to find them. You have to come back tomorrow to find your keys. You got to leave. You're not.
Okay, let me pause here and explain what's going on for those who are just joining. This was a high school graduation party. So obviously, you know, kids around drinking and all that kind of stuff, which, yes, we know shouldn't be happening. But come on, let's be real. This judge probably did this herself when she was their age. I mean, come on. I think sometimes as we get older, we get a little too harsh on the younger people, knowing that we did some of these things too, like when we were growing up or whatever. But a high school graduation party, the police have been called. They are there on the scene. And for whatever reason, the judge thinks it's her duty to show up and start telling them what to do. Again, the cops are there. From what I understand, they already have it under control, but she wants to make herself the center of attention.
Where's the car? Where's the car?
You gotta call an Uber and get off the property.
This is the car?
No,
That's what I'm
the red
saying.
one across.
Go hang out at the car. All right. I'm gonna
No,
look for these
done.
keys,
You're
all right?
done.
Go to the car.
Done.
The woman that you hear yelling, that's the judge. And this is not her house. She's saying, get off the property, but I do want you to understand this is not her house.
Get off the property. And that's Judge Gall. I'm a fucking judge. I'm telling you, get off the fucking
Guys, hey,
property.
dude, go wait at the car.
No,
Where's the car?
it's
Go to the
Judge.
car.
I don't give a
I'm about
fuck.
to
So this is her using her position, her title as a judge to threaten people. I'm a judge. Get off the lawn. Notice she is more hostile than the police are. The police are actually pretty calm. She's the one that's acting a damn fool.
Tell your mother you were on property that you weren't supposed to be at. Go! You're done! You're done! Get out! Officers, you gotta tell them to get off the property.
Right, but they're not. They got nowhere to
I
go.
don't care. They can call an Uber.
I asked them to wait.
Call an Uber. They're not gonna find it in this right now.
Go to the car.
I mean, Jesus, that's fine. I need a little haystack. Get off.
So now she's trying to tell the police officers how to do their job. And I want you to think about it, because this could have gone dangerously wrong. You know, you never know. You walk up on the wrong police officer and you start telling them what to do. And that could have been your last conversation. Like, you never know, right?
You can figure it out.
We're going to look, man. We have no idea.
Get off the property.
They could be across the street. Go on a golf ball. Just go hang out up in the road at your car.
Get off the property. There's a fight here. I don't want anyone on the property. If I have to clear it out, I will. They're not going to find keys. They'll find them tomorrow.
They could be anywhere.
I'm not looking for keys. Guys, don't look for keys anymore, please. I don't care about this kid's fucking keys.
Now that's her telling the police officers not to look for the keys. So from what I understand from this incident, the kids that are trying to leave, apparently one of them or whatever was trying to find their keys so that they can leave. So obviously it's like, you don't have the keys. I mean, how are you going to drive away if you got the keys? Ay.
I do. So
I don't.
relax. It's not even your house. Chill out.
Well, the homeowner probably.
It's my jurisdiction, though.
Oh, okay.
So you hear that? The police officer told her it's not her house. So the footage that you're seeing now, this is from the body cam, the police officer's body cam. He told her it's not her house. And she says that it's her jurisdiction. So she thinks that because this is her jurisdiction, she can just walk around and police the neighborhood. Isn't this wild? And we'll talk about why this is incredibly dangerous when we talk about who is in a position of power and how they choose to utilize that power.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Don't laugh.
I'm
What's
not.
your name?
Capelli.
Capelli. Okay, I'll make sure I tell you. I mean, seriously, you're worried about a trespasser and a phone key.
I mean, a bunch of adults.
Crime, and you're looking for his keys.
So did all the adults giving all these kids booze. So what do you want?
What was that?
So did all the adults giving these kids booze.
No, we don't even know who this kid
Well,
is.
that's what I'm saying. Let's just chill out, all right?
Adult gave this kid booze.
Let's chill out. Let's get rid of them. All right, they're going.
Still looking for his keys.
Because he wants to get his car out of here. You don't want to hear all day, right?
I don't care. Tow it. Give it a ticket.
We're trying.
Give it a ticket. It shouldn't be
We're
there.
trying. That's why we're looking.
Kelly, this is ridiculous.
If somebody says, "Hey, I found,"
Let me pause. This is her. This is Erin Gall right here. This is the woman losing her shit.
whatever, I found the
I'll
keys.
call
and
you if
give
I
them to
find.
us,
Yes, but I'm
and
not
we'll take
looking
care
for a
of
key.
it.
The car
Yes.
started.
Obviously, the best case scenario would be if the key turned up and we had it and we gave it back to them. They won't come back here looking for it. That's what I'm trying to
Well, if
say.
they come back looking for it, I'll call you when they're on the property. Because you want to find them on the property, I'll call you when they're on the property.
Come back.
Why does she need to call the police if they're back on the property when the police officer has already explained that the property is not her property? So why is she policing someone else's property? And I'm assuming the gentleman that's standing next to her, I'm assuming this must be either a husband or a friend or whatever. But it's just like, at some point, I feel like someone needed to check her and tell her, like, you know what? You need to let them do their job and you need to go home. You need to go home. But it gets worse. Hold on.
At all. That's what I'm sure you
If they
want
did,
as well.
they'll be arrested. Or they'll be shot on the property.
Well, I'm just letting you know that
Because
the best case
when they
scenario,
trespass, you can shoot them on the property.
should just come here and just.
No, I'm just saying.
Every day?
I'll shoot them on the
No,
property.
no.
Did everybody hear what she just said? She said, or you can shoot them. This part right here. Listen to what she says.
That's what I'm trying to
Well, if
say.
they come back looking for it, I'll call you when they're on the property. Because you want to find them on the property, I'll call you when they're
I
on
want
the
them to not
property.
come back at all.
I'll call you when they're on the property,
That's what I'm sure you
If they
want
did,
as well.
they'll be arrested. Or they'll be shot on the property.
Well, I'm
or they'll be shot on the property. So do you see how what she's doing? So again, she's a judge. She knows the law. That police officer knows the law. Look at what she's pushing for. Isn't this insane? Again, for those just joining, this was a high school graduation party. The police were already there clearing the kids out. I'm assuming she called the police. This was not her property. She decided to butt her nose in it because as a judge, she said it's her jurisdiction. So she took this to another level when at this point, the police actually were de-escalating the situation, which we don't see a lot of times. But she showed up and made things worse. Then she goes on to say this.
Just letting you know that
Because
the best case
when they
scenario,
trespass, you can shoot them on the
They
property.
should just come here and just.
No, I'm just saying.
Every day?
I'll shoot them on the property.
No.
Now, she just said this in front of the cop. This is a New York judge who said in front of the police officer that she will shoot them on the property. Now, why is this a problem? Why is this a problem? Look at her, guys. Don't miss that face. That is Erin Gall. And again, I'm assuming this must be her significant other standing next to her. This is a judge. Why is this a problem? This is someone that is in a position where a lot of people come through her courtroom. Imagine if one of these kids came through her courtroom. Do you see how she's behaving outside of the courtroom, ready to take matters into her own hands? I'll shoot them on the property, she says. So how do you think she would treat those kids if they came into her courtroom? She's more than likely to give them a harsher sentence. She's not even just asking them to leave. This woman wants them dead. This is insane. And she's a judge? How many cases has she presided over? How many cases went through this woman's courtroom? And maybe there should be some checking to see if she was fair with those cases. Now, rightfully so, this story did get out in New York. So we do have to go to this. This was upstate New York. And she was called out on it. And they want her gone. Upstate New York judge faces removal over racially offensive rant at a graduation party. See, when I tell you it's the system, this is a perfect example of the system being a part of the problem. Everybody doesn't get a fair shot in the courtroom, in the criminal justice system. New York judicial watchdog has decided that an Oneida County judge should be removed from the bench because of a racially offensive, profane, prolonged public diatribe outside a high school graduation party. State Supreme Court Justice Erin Gall invoked her judgeship with police during a confrontation that arose at the July 2022 party in New Hartford, according to the Commission on Judicial Conduct, which recommended her removal. The party held at the home of a friend of the family. Everybody hear this? A friend of the family. Swelled as word spread across social media and erupted into a melee between some teens. The party included a beer keg, or beer in a keg. In meetings with the commission, Gall acknowledged her ethical lapses. Neither she nor her attorney could be reached immediately for the comment. She has been a state Supreme Court justice since 2012. So again, I say to this, how many cases did this woman preside over, and how did she treat the people who came through her courtroom? I mean, hell, it's one thing to say these kids are too damn loud, I need for them to leave. It's another damn thing for you to show up there when the police are already trying to get them to leave and you say you would shoot them. It goes on to say, Gall multiple times told responding police who were trying to de-escalate the situation that she was a judge. She tried to direct them to who should be arrested, despite what police saw as a lack of evidence, commission reports show. Her son was among those involved in fights, records say. So you see this? I mean, obviously she's not going to want to shoot her son. When one officer told Gall that she wasn't even at her home She answered, "It's my jurisdiction, though." And we went through the comments. Here's some here. Erin Gall comments captured on video, encouraging police to arrest Black teens who were allegedly involved in some of the scuffles. She said, "They don't look like they're that smart. They're not going to business school, that's for sure." She had informed the police that her son would be attending business school. So again, is that the same mentality that she had when there were Black people in her courtroom? They don't look like they're that smart. It goes on to say here, we talked about the shooting on the property part. Listen to this part. What New York Judge Erin Gall said about the party comments. In meetings with the commission and a referee, Gall acknowledged that she appeared to be seeking preferential treatment by invoking her office. She once threatened to call the police officer superior, which also gave the impression that she wanted special treatment because she is a judge. Her statements about the Black teens created at least the appearance of racial bias. Gall told the commission that she reacted emotionally because both her son and her husband, who she tried to intervene, ended up involved in fights. She said she also was frustrated because she thought the police response was inadequate. Gall said she was assaulted when a college student in 1990, and the graduation melee reminded her of that assault and triggered an extreme emotional response. So again, this is not an excuse for her to behave the way that she did. And it's just, again, this is someone abusing their power, and that is problematic. Now, do all judges do this? No, they don't. It goes on to say what the panel found. The commission, however, found her transgressions severe enough to warrant removal. She repeatedly violated the ethical rule prohibiting judges from lending the prestige of their judicial office to advance their own private interests or the interests of others. It is utterly unacceptable for a judge to threaten gun violence, exhibit racial prejudice, promise favorable treatment for the police, or disparage a law intended to keep guns away from dangerous people. Any one of these things would undermine public confidence in the administration of justice. It says Gall has been the justice of the Supreme Court, 5th Judicial District, since 2012. Her current term expires December 31st of 2025. This was a New York Supreme Court judge. And so when I tell you that the system is corrupt and that the system is not fair and the criminal justice system is very problematic, this is a perfect example. Thank you for those of you who sent me this story, because this one kind of flew by my radar and I was like, what the hell is this? New York judge. Let's go to some of the comments here. Thank you for the super chat, Sparky. Zelensky's never identified himself as Jewish either. Interesting. Thank you, David Parker. I want to buy Caleb's book. Please repeat info. Yes, I will put the link back in the chat here. There you go. Shout out to Lisa Donacker for becoming a Sabby YouTube member. Give Lisa a big whoop whoop in the house. Thank you for the super chat, Sparky. Judge sounded drunk. Yeah, she did sound like she, I don't know if she had some drinks or not, but that's ridiculous. Manifest says Judge Super Karen. Thank you, Sparky. Judge Karen got her wine time disturbed. Wine time. Thank you, Wasim. I bet if you ask that judge's neighbor, they will probably say she is making their lives hell. Don't be surprised if she is on Fear Thy Neighbor on investigative discovery. Interesting. She's probably she's probably that person in the neighborhood that everybody can't stand, but they just smile to her face because they don't want to deal with her. There's always that one person in the neighborhood that people find to be very annoying, but they just smile at them because they don't want to have to, Thank you for the super chat, Jason. When the cop told Judge Karen to chill, you hear him say, Jesus Christ. But seriously, though, she's dangerous. Thanks, Sabby. You and RBN keep me fighting. You are welcome, Jason. Thank you, Juanita. Sabby, it's obvious this woman is super slow. Thanks, Sparky. The gall of Judge Gall. I know, right? Thank you for this as well. Even without the racist rants, Judge Gall needs to go. And thank you for this one. Judge Gall has poor judgment. It's crazy. Thank you, Wasim. Good news in Canada. They removed the Jewish National Fund and 40 others off of taxable charities. They are responsible for settler colonization and dispossession in the West Bank and the Golan Heights. I also saw a story today that Canada is now calling for an immediate ceasefire. Interesting, guys. And shout out to Marsh U123 for becoming a Sabby member. Give Marsh a big whoop whoop. All right. And we're moving on. Moving on. Go ahead and smash that like button, guys. And we're moving on to our next story. So, yes, we are still talking about the Trump attempted assassination because there is more information that has been revealed about the shooter. Now, first, we're going to start with what happened to the Secret Service director. Kimberly Cheadle has just resigned. So we want to cover the resignation first, which rightfully so. Obviously, during the testimony, it was very clear that she acknowledged that there were several failures that happened there. And then we're going to get into the story about the FBI director. We're going to pivot into that because the FBI director also testified and revealed some damning information about the shooter that I think you guys need to hear. Let's start with the Secret Service resignation first.
I want to go straight to our Zach Cohen here in the Washington Bureau. Zach, I understand the Secret Service director has resigned after that very contentious hearing and all of these questions about the agency's handling of the assassination attempt of Donald Trump and what they were doing before that assassination attempt. What can you tell us?
Yeah, Jim, U.S. official telling our colleague Evan Perez that Director Cheadle has tendered her resignation. And of course, that comes one day after she faced a grilling in front of House lawmakers who demanded answers about the security lapses that led to the assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump on July 13th. Of course, they were frustrated when Cheadle really refused to give any sort of detail about what their investigation so far has turned up as far as the U.S. Secret Service's role in those security lapses. Cheadle did take full responsibility for the failures that day during yesterday's hearing, calling it a colossal failure on the part of the U.S. Secret Service and on her and for her personally. Of course, taking that responsibility was not enough to keep her in the job of director. She today facing a chorus of people calling on her to resign, ultimately tendering her resignation, according to a U.S. official.
And I think we all have pointed out multiple things that we saw during all the different videos that I've shown on this show. There were a number of things that just did not line up, that things that should have been done where there were multiple failures there from Secret Service. So, of course, she did the right thing by resigning. I mean, we're talking about this, after the fact, but the reality is this could have gone very differently, right?
And Zach, it just was starting to feel like this was inevitable. I mean, you had members of Congress from both parties. You had the chairman and the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee both calling for the Secret Service director to resign. Frankly, I'm a little shocked she didn't do it Sunday night when there was all that hoopla as to what was going to happen with the Democratic ticket. But it just felt like this was inevitable. This was coming.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Jim. And you'll remember during yesterday's hearing, one of the members, the Republican members of the committee, actually offered to give up her time during the hearing to have Director Cheadle write her resignation letter, and she politely declined. And at one point, she did say that she still believed that she was the best person for the job during that hearing. But you're right, a bipartisan letter from Congressman Jamie Raskin, a Democrat, and Republican chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, really tipping the balance here. That bipartisan call for her to step down was really, the writing was on the wall after that.
Okay, so she has resigned, and now we are moving on to the testimony from the FBI director, which I think this is particularly important. We have two different clips that I want to show here. The first one is about the shooter's drone. And now I don't know if you guys are familiar with drones. I am, but if you're not familiar with drones, I mean, they do make noise. Like they do make noise. You can see them. I have not seen a silent drone. I don't know if that exists yet, but who knows? But they're noticeable and they do make noise. I want you to hear what Director Ray says during this testimony about the drone that was supposedly involved in this as well. Listen to this.
Gentleman yields back. Director, let me go back to where Mr. Bishop was. Tell me about the drone. You act like you wanted to fill us in on that. Fill us in.
So we have recovered a drone that the shooter appears to have used. It's being exploited and analyzed by the FBI lab. The drone was recovered in his vehicle. So at the time of the shooting, the drone was in his vehicle with the controller. In addition, our investigation has uncovered.
Do you know what time of day he flew it, and if he flew it on the day of the shot?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So in addition, it appears that around 3:50 p.m., 4 o'clock in that window, on the day of the shooting, that the shooter was flying the drone around the area.
2 hours.
About 11 minutes. I want to be clear, but when I say the area, not over the stage and that part of the area itself, but I would say about 200 yards, give or take, away from that. We think, but we do not know. So again, this is one of these things that's qualified because of our ongoing review, that he was live streaming, viewing the footage from that, again, about 11 minutes in around the 3:50, 4 o'clock p.m. range.
2 hours before, he's flying a drone in the vicinity of the route.
About 200 yards away, yes.
200 yards. Okay, that's...
Let me pause here. 200 yards, let me pull this up. 200 yards isn't that far. So just keep that in mind. So you mean to tell me, it's like, guys, help me out here. You mean to tell me that this guy was flying a drone 2 hours prior to the shooting and nobody saw this? No one from Secret Service or anything? No one saw a drone for 2 hours? Doesn't that seem weird to you? You would have thought one person would have, I don't, yeah, you just, right. Okay, let's go on a little bit more.
That's important information. What about the bombs that we've heard about in the shooter's car?
So again, the FBI lab is exploiting those explosive devices. Yep. We've recovered 3 devices, 2 in his vehicle and 1 back in his residence.
Are these what you would call, your experts would call sophisticated operations, or this? I don't know. That's what I've been told by people who have some understanding of this area.
Yeah, I think it's. We've seen more sophisticated and less. I would say these are relatively, again, keyword, relatively crude devices themselves, but they did have the ability to be detonated remotely. And so to that point, in addition to the 2 devices that we recovered out of his vehicle, there were receivers for those 2 explosive devices with the devices. And then on the shooter himself, when he was killed by law enforcement, he had a transmitter with him. Now, I do want to add.
Pause. So guys, this is why I continue to say there's no way, based on the evidence that I've heard, I don't believe there's any way he did this by himself. And I said that from day one. I mean, so this guy had a drone that he was flying for 2 hours prior to the event. He was live streaming apparently, and there were also explosives. He managed to pull up a ladder next to the building, get on top of the roof. Like, it seems like he had a lot of time to get all of this done, and no one seemed to notice anything. And that's just really weird to me. I mean, is he MacGyver? Like, there's no way. No way. You can't tell me this kid didn't have help somewhere from someone. Somebody knows something. Somebody knows something, and they should be looking to see if there was some type of accomplice whoever they were, they're probably long gone by now. But there's no way this guy did this by himself.
One important point here is at the moment, it looks to us, again, ongoing review, and I can't say that too many times. At a moment, it looks like because of the on-off position on the receivers, that if he had tried to detonate those devices from the roof, it would not have worked. Okay. But that doesn't mean the explosives weren't dangerous.
And I'm sure we're going to get into all these subjects a little bit later as well. Tell us what you can about the encrypted platforms we've heard about.
So one of the things that we're drilling into hard with the shooter in an effort to try to learn more about his state of mind, his motive, his ideology, his context, everything else, is to look at all of his devices, any social media accounts he had, et cetera. And one of the things we've learned in finally getting into his phone, which was also a significant technical challenge from an encryption perspective, but
it took this long to get into the phone. Guys, I know kids, look, peep this, okay? There are kids in college, all right? You had difficulty getting into that phone. I'm pretty sure there's some kids at MIT that could get into that phone faster than you. No. I'll tell you what I think really happened at the end of all of this.
in addition, once we got on the phone, it turned out he was using some encrypted messaging applications.
And again, the same question relative to the bombs. Was this pretty sophisticated, or is this the kind of the norm you see with folks like, similar situation? How would you describe
on this subject, I would say this has unfortunately now become very commonplace, and it's a real challenge for not just the FBI, but state and local law enforcement all over the country.
Tell me exactly the scope of, does the scope of your investigation include what I call that critical 5 minutes from when the 6:09, when this is based, I think, on information you've given to Congress, 6:09 when the shooter's identified on the roof, and 6:14 when President Trump is ultimately escorted off, and all that happens, the shots that take place in between there. Do you have access to the communications that were going on at the time in that critical 5 minutes?
So our investigation, when you say scope, our investigation includes that time frame, although focused again on the shooter himself.
I understand.
And his day.
Now, as part of that, he's obviously involved in that time frame.
Correct. And as part of that, as part of our focus, our investigation of the shooter and the attack, of course, we are interviewing law enforcement from the scene because those are some of the most significant witnesses, and we're obviously getting access to their materials and that kind of thing. And the secret.
No. So here's the thing. The FBI director, to me, he seems very nervous. I don't know. I feel like he just putting some things together and hoping that they just stick. That's what it kind of seems like to me. I don't believe he's telling the truth. Let me tell you something. Let's think about this, guys. With all the agencies that we have in this country, and you want to talk about encryption, and he said we couldn't get into the phone for a while because it was encrypted. We have agencies, government agencies, that know how to bypass that. They have been known to contact people that know how to bypass that. So I don't believe it. I call BS. So there's that. And again, this kid who apparently no military training or anything like that, he was able to pull all this off by himself? I don't think so. Let me tell you what I think went down. Let's think about the area where this happened. Rural Pennsylvania. Yes, there was a rally that was present, but it wasn't going to be in one of those spaces. Like, it wasn't going to be like in a larger city where there would be like 5,000, 6,000 people there, right? So a little bit more remote, maybe not as noticeable to someone that's really following what's happening electorally, right? I just found it to be very strange that during the same time when people higher ups were calling for Joe Biden to resign, all of a sudden this happened. And then you have to go back and look at the polling, because Trump was beating Biden in the polls in all the swing states, in all of them. Now it's closer now with him and Kamala, but even in the swing states, he still got ahead of her. But he was beating him in all that. He was just basically on the way to victory, to be honest with you. And I say that, and I don't even like Trump. He was basically on the way to victory. And at the same time, people were telling Joe Biden, resign, get out of this race. Don't run for re-election. And then this happens. So you mean to tell me this 20-year-old kid just out of nowhere was like, you know what? I'm going to show up at this rally and I'm going to try to take him out. It doesn't make sense to me. This story never made any sense. So to me, I wouldn't be surprised if this was an inside job. I've been talking about this before. And I don't believe the FBI director. I think he's lying. Now, all of a sudden, you don't know how to get past an encryption? Why do we have the FBI again?
You're getting
Service has been
access
fully
to
cooperative.
you have access to the communications that exist there.
That exact question, as I sit here at the moment, I don't know the exact answer to that question, but I know that Secret Service has been cooperative with us.
The Congress would like access to those communications as well. I mean, not just that 5 minutes, although I think that's the critical time frame. There's lots of communications we'd love to have access as well. I see my time is up, and they have called votes on the floor. I think there are about 6 minutes left in votes. So the committee will stand in recess until approximately 10 minutes after votes conclude on the House floor.
Yeah, I don't believe this man. So we're going to go to the second clip because there's another one where he reveals a little bit more information about the shooter. So I want to pull this one up as well. Let me put this up here. This is about the Kennedy assassination. So listen to this.
Have you been able to gain access to the shooter's electronic communications, social media, and with the caveats that you mentioned that the investigation is still early, have you been able to make any deductions or are there any indications of the shooter's motivation from those electronic holdings?
So in terms of our ability to access it, we have been able to get into and exploit a number of electronic devices, digital devices, but not all of them yet. And then within his various accounts, we've been able to get access to some of them, but some of them we're still waiting on. Some of them we may never get access to because of the encryption issue.
No, guys, I'm sorry. This is BS. I'm sorry. This is BS. I'm here to tell you, if they wanted to get in, they could get in. I mean, if we didn't learn anything from Edward Snowden, what did Edward Snowden teach us? Right? If they want to get in, they can get in. If they want to monitor your information, they can monitor your information, whether there's an encryption or not. That's why I'm telling you, this is BS. Baloney. What is the point of the FBI? Other than harassing people?
That it presents an increasingly vexing barrier for law enforcement, not just the FBI, but for law enforcement all over the country. What we've been able to find so far, a lot of the usual repositories of information have not yielded anything notable in terms of motive or like ideology. Having said that, it does appear fairly clear that he was interested in public figures, kind of more broadly, and I think this is important, that starting somewhere around July 6th or so, he became very focused on former President Trump and this rally. And so one of the things that I can share here today that has not been shared yet is that we've just in the last couple of days found that from our review, to your point about devices, analysis of a laptop that the investigation ties to the shooter reveals that on July 6th, he did a Google search for, quote, how far away was Oswald from Kennedy?
Does that sound a little too convenient for you guys? Oh yeah, he just happened to do a Google search to see how far away was Oswald from Kennedy. Doesn't that sound a little convenient? Look at his face. Look at his facial expression. Look, does he even believe what he's saying?
And so that's a search that obviously is significant in terms of his state of mind. That is the same day that it appears that he registered for the Butler rally. Yeah,
just sounds a little bit too convenient to me. Sounds like something you would hear from a movie. Sounds like a movie to me. Doesn't sound like real life. Doesn't sound like real life at all. They have found no motive, no reason for that at all. All of a sudden, this kid just out of nowhere would just go and do this. I don't believe this. Listen, let me tell you something. It took years, decades for the FBI to finally admit that they killed Malcolm X. Of course, Malcolm X family, I think I announced this last year, they were filing a lawsuit over that finally, but it took decades for them to admit that after they said it was someone else. Decades for them to admit that they were the ones that killed MLK, that they went after MLK. I mean, get out of here. If they want this done, they're obviously not going to make it look like it's them. They're going to make it look like it's someone else. That's how this works. That's how the FBI works. That's how the CIA work. So all of this just seems a little too convenient for me. Now, the crazy thing is, I just heard the news today that apparently Donald Trump is going back to Butler, Pennsylvania to host another rally. So I'm pretty sure he will be very well protected this time around. But I've read too much about this. Even when I read about what happened to Fred Hampton, the way that they go about doing this, they have people from the inside of your organization that will infiltrate to help them take you down. That's what they did to Fred Hampton. And this is not to say that Trump is like some activist figure or whatever, but if it's someone that they feel they want to stop, for example, Russia, Ukraine. So that's the big thing for Trump, right? He said the war needs to end. He's tired of that kind of thing, and that it would have never happened if he were in office, and that he didn't start new wars. He did implement coups, but he didn't start new wars. So there's that, right? So the way that I kind of see it is that he would be a liability to the military industrial complex, and the deep state could see that. So they would not want him to win. Look how many wars have started under Joe Biden's presidency. So you guys see these things that happen, like they want people in that's going to keep the war machine going so they can continue to launder money. That's how this works. So the way that I see this, if you go back to the Black Panthers, for example, remember the way that they had Black Panther members turn against Fred Hampton. That's how they were able to kill Fred Hampton. So to me, this all seems a little way too convenient. The kid who they identified as the shooter is dead. So it's not like you can ask him what happened. And even if he would have lived, they probably would have killed him in prison. These are things that we got to think about. But it's a little too weird to me. I never thought in my lifetime I would even see a presidential assassination attempt. I read about these things growing up. Of course, I think the last one was Reagan, but I never thought that we would see it, especially with all the technology that we have today. There's just no excuse. No excuse. We will continue to follow that story. Crazy times, folks. Crazy times. Let's go to some of the comments here. Corey, we can go ahead and go to part 2. Snork, yeah, Trump just announced that he is going back to finish the rally. I know. I heard that. Thank you, Sparky. If they have an HOA, Judge Karen is either its president or wants to be. I guess so. Miss Kiwi, drones are like lawnmowers in the sky. Yeah, they're kind of loud, actually. Michael R., the real shooter was atop the water tower Sabs. Yeah, I've heard that. And thank you, Sparky. Go FBI. Take the CIA with you. That's crazy, man. This is why I'm not against those agencies disappearing. I'm not against that. I'm not against the FBI, going away or the CIA going away. And thank you, Joey, for this. Joey is a member, has been a member for 13 months. Joey Peltier, the FBI is responsible for keeping Leonard Peltier in prison, tried to kill our leaders on a farm in South Dakota, falsified evidence to lock Leonard up, and more. That's right. And Leonard Peltier was just denied parole. So that's how these agencies work, fam. Crazy times we're living in. Crazy times. And I think I have one more. Sorry about that. Thank you for the super chat, Tupik. He could have programmed the drone to fly on its own. Some drones even ping ID and location info via FAA requirements. FAA would have noticed the drone as it was likely a no-fly zone due to the event. Yeah, that's crazy. 2 hours before the event. Aye. All right, guys, let's go on to our next story here. Go ahead and move this button. If you have not had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash that like button. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And we're moving on. Moving on. Okie doke. We need to have a conversation. For the past year or so, CNN, MSNBC, corporate media pundits, they have been interviewing people like Charlamagne the God, and also in this one, Angela Rye, about the campaign, the presidential campaign. Now, Charlamagne the God said that he didn't think that Joe Biden should stay in the race, but he also said that if he stayed in the race, he would still support him anyway. So he was very excited when Joe Biden did choose to step aside and pass the torch to Kamala Harris. Now, I want to explain something to you guys because this is a conversation that we need to have. I want you to hear the way that Charlamagne the God and Angela Rye talk about Kamala Harris. And I want you to keep in mind that Kamala Harris has no platform, no presidential platform at the moment. And then I want to tell you why this is problematic when particularly it comes to the Black community, because we're not getting any concessions for our vote. Listen to this.
Joining us now, Angela Rye. She's the host of Native Land podcast. Also with us, Charlamagne the God, a co-host of the popular iHeart radio show, The Breakfast Club. Also the author of the new book, Get Honest or Die Lying, Why Small Talk Sucks. There it is. There it is. Everybody run out and get it. Angela, already conservatives are making comments aimed at Vice President Kamala Harris's race. Listen to what Republican Congressman Tim Burchett told CNN today.
Biden said, first off, he said he's going to hire a black female for vice president, and that he just skipped over. What about white females? What about any other group? It just, when you go down that route, you take mediocrity, and that's what they have right now as a vice president.
So are you suggesting she was a DEI hire?
100%. She was a DEI hire.
Angela.
Now, I'll get into that with the next story because I don't think that this is a good road to go down. I think that is only helping Kamala Harris. I'll get to that a little bit later.
What's your reaction to that?
My reaction to that is DEI didn't earn it unless you're talking about legacy admissions and some of the trust funds that many of those members of Congress have. What you have in Kamala Harris is someone who was not only a county prosecutor, a state attorney general for California, a statewide elected United States senator, and now the vice president. I don't know about you, Jake, but for the track record for most of our vice presidents, she's pretty much on par. So I would argue that it is in fact not mediocre. What is showing in this clip is this man's racism. It's very clear that he has compared blackness with mediocrity when many of our folks in our community know that we have to be twice as good and 3 times as qualified. And that is what you have in Kamala Harris.
Charlamagne, what's your response when you hear white Republican congressman referring to Vice President Harris as a DEI hire?
I would say MAGA has a lot of DEI hires too. You know, conservatives have a lot of DEI hires, but DEI stands for delusion, entitlement, and idiocracy. Because they're delusional because they think Donald Trump is their savior. They're entitled because they're a bunch of privileged white men who want everybody else to stay in their place. And the idiocracy comes into play because that's the movie the RNC convention reminded me of the other night.
Classic film.
Let's pause here for a second. So why do they bring on people like Charlamagne and Angela Rye? Because they're a part of the status quo. You always got to remember this, right? They interview people like them because, number one, Charlamagne the God, The Breakfast Club is a hip hop show. This is not to say I hate The Breakfast Club, but it's a hip hop show. It's not a political show. But for whatever reason, over the past couple of years, they have interviewed political candidates, but it's not a political show. The focus is hip hop culture, Black culture, that type of thing. There are a number of Black commentators, Black political commentators that are never brought onto these shows. You'll never see them on CNN or MSNBC. You'll never even hear about them. They'll bring on someone like Roland Martin because he came from corporate media, right? So he's still doing the bidding of the Democratic Party. None of these people will ever tell you that you need to step away from the two-party system, that the Democratic Party is corporate, the Republican Party is corporate. None of these people that they bring on here, the Black people that they bring on to speak for the Black community, are telling you what working class Black people are actually saying out in the streets. This is why I started independent media, because I would watch this over and over again. And I'm like, dude, that is not what people are saying. So they then become the spokesperson for the Black community, but they're not representative of the majority of Black Americans in the Black community. And this is important for people to really understand. This is done on purpose. They are there to continue to maintain and to protect the status quo. They are there to make sure that we don't rock the boat. By we, I mean the Black community, because you guys know this, that Black people, more of us have left the Democratic Party. And this didn't just start with Joe Biden. This has been over the years. Since Obama's presidency, it has happened over the years. You guys know this, right? So they bring on people like Charlamagne the God and Angela Rye, who they're both still, they're corporates, because they are the ones that they have very popular shows. The Breakfast Club, I think, is like still the #1 radio show in the country. So they reach millions of people. So they need to bring those people on so that, again, Black people know not to rock the boat and do something different. This is important for people to get. Let's continue on.
By Mike Judge. Charlamagne, you previously called both Joe Biden and Donald Trump trash candidates, and you said you would vote in this election, but you would not endorse Biden. Now that he's out, do you think you might endorse Vice President Kamala Harris should she get the nomination?
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely would endorse Vice President Kamala Harris. I supported Kamala Harris in 2020 when she ran for president. I was out there on the campaign trail with her. She was the only reason that I voted for the Biden-Harris ticket to begin with. And, we have our, disagreements on air and off air. But I think that, she is the perfect person, to be to fight in these unprecedented times right now.
Okay, pause. So notice that he didn't say anything about her platform. He didn't say anything about her policies. And I had this conversation with someone earlier today and they mad at me, but that's okay. They're mad at me because they said, are you seriously going to vote third party in this two-party system in this country? You're going to mess around and we're going to get Donald Trump. And I said, well, no, I'm not going to mess around and cause you to get anything. If Donald Trump wins, it will be because Joe Biden's presidency wasn't good for the people economically, which I have been talking about over and over again. So there's that. But there's just this mentality among Black voters in the Black community that you're just supposed to get in line with the Democratic Party. The majority of Black Americans don't even vote. So for those that do, it's like we're supposed to do that. And if we don't do that, then we're a problem. And it's not like I'm a Republican. I'm not even on the right. I'm just like, nah, I don't really fuck with either one of these parties. My last time doing this was Bernie 2020. After that, I said, that's it, I'm done, because I know how the game is. So I don't want to be a part of these corporate parties. That's my choice. Now, what I see happening is there's a number of them, and it's on social media too. There's a number of people now, all of a sudden, Black voters just getting on board for Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris hasn't presented any policies to you. She hasn't laid out any platform. What is Kamala Harris running on? And everybody just got in line. And that's the problem that I have. I'm tired of that. I want us to ask for concessions for our vote the same way I've seen other groups do this. I have seen Latino community ask for concessions when it comes to immigration policy. And I've seen them get some of those concessions. I've seen the Jewish community do the same thing. They're doing it right now. But when it comes to Black voters, you're just supposed to get in line and just support the Democratic Party just because they're not the Republican Party. And this is why the Democratic Party feels they don't need to do anything for us. Now, I don't think it makes me a bad person to say that we need to have some concessions for our votes. So you have the demands and we need to get concessions. And since this is an incumbent, since Joe Biden is still in office, some of these things could be done right now. I mean, it's crazy. And I say this to people and they lose their freaking minds. You're not going to support her. She's a woman. You're not going to support her. She's Black. What's wrong with you? I thought we all learned this lesson from Obama 2008. No, I thought Obama taught us not to just jump on board with someone because they have the same complexion as us. Because that doesn't mean that they're going to implement policies that's actually going to make things better for the Black community. You're going to talk about how Black wealth tanked under Barack Obama's presidency. And I thought we all learned that lesson, but apparently not. People are doing it again. Everybody get on board. No policies, no platform.
Angela, what do you make of Donald Trump saying that he is building support among Black voters?
I don't. I make the same thing out of it that exists. It's absolutely nothing. It's a nothing burger. Donald Trump does not have a tremendous track record with Black people. I think many of us can see through the lies, the parallels that he's trying to make with his, entanglements with the system are not real. There are Black folks who are struggling to make and pay legal bills every day, struggling to figure out how they're going to raise bail money. Meanwhile, in Georgia, Governor Kemp signed a bill into law that would prevent organizations that help people make bail. He prevented that. That is Donald Trump's, someone who's just like Donald Trump. It's Donald Trump's legacy playing out in states. When you look at what Project 2025 is all about, we know that most of those policies will hit us harder than anywhere else. When you look at what the Supreme Court has done with the 3 appointments from Donald Trump, we know that those policies are impacting us more than anyone else. So in our community, folks don't get immunity, right? He's offering immunity for police, for law enforcement, and he has immunity himself. That's something that we don't ever have. In fact, we are guilty until proven innocent in our community. So there's no there. I think that at best, he gets 16% of the Black vote. And I think even that's a stretch.
Let me just pause and interrupt here and just say something, because I don't think Angela understands what she just said. So first and foremost, I heavily disagree with the immunity for the police. You guys know how I feel about the popo. I heavily disagree with Trump with that. Heavily disagree. Don't like the popo. That is me. But one of the things that she said here, she said that he'll probably get 16% of the vote. That's it. That's a significant amount, Angela. A Republican candidate receiving 16% of the Black vote, that's actually a big deal. Right now, he's polling at 21% of the Black vote, Angela. I showed the polls on here the other day. 21% of the Black vote right now. That's the most recent poll. That's actually a big deal. So she's shrugging this off like that's no big deal. No, who else had that? George W. Bush didn't have that. Donald Trump didn't have it in 2016. He didn't have it in 2020. So why is she pretending like that's not a big deal? That's a big deal. I showed you the numbers the other night, right? That he had 7 or 8-ish% of the Black vote, 2016. The polls show he has 21% support now. So he's increased. No, I'm not saying that the Republican Party now has 50% of the Black vote. No, but it's increasing. So what does that tell you? We'll continue on. Wait a minute. Project 2025. That was another thing she said. JB and I went over Project 2025 on RBN and we broke it down. Guys, a lot of those things in Project 2025 have already been happening for years. It's not new. Most people don't have time to sit down and look at 900 pages. In fact, Yvette Carnell just went over Project 2025 on her channel. Go look at it. She sums it up for you. Now, I'm not here to tell you what's in Project 2025 is good. No, it's not good, but it's also not new. So I don't know why they're continuing to do, you see what I mean? Let's continue.
Angela, Vice President Harris's advisors say that her campaign is going to lean heavily into the choice between her as a prosecutor and Donald Trump as a convicted felon. Do you think that's wise? Is that what voters want, a prosecutor?
I think there's never been a time where voters would want a prosecutor more. You have someone who has.
See, now they pushing the police. So now here comes Angela pushing the police. I don't want a prosecutor for president. Just like I didn't want Eric Adams to be mayor of New York. I didn't want a cop to be mayor of New York. And I don't want a prosecutor for president.
A proven track record, again, as a prosecutor, as a state's attorney, as an attorney general, rather. And she has demonstrated that she knows how to prosecute cases against the most corrupt among us. And I think
she prosecuted Black people. She threw Black parents in jail. She went against the Black working class. She took Black parents out of the home and put them in prison for truancy. Well, their kid wasn't at school. Okay, then you implement programs that can help the child. You implement programs that can help them. A lot of these are single parents working multiple jobs. You don't throw the parent in jail so now the child ends up in the system and belongs to the state. So I don't get this. Bragging about this prosecutor record, no. Because if you're going to talk about it, you got to go all the way in. Her prosecutor record is problematic, Angela. And Angela knows that. But again, why are they on there? Why is it Angela and Charlamagne? Because they are there to maintain the status quo. And Angela and Charlamagne are there to make sure that the Black community stays in the Democratic Party. That's what this is all about. They know Black people have been leaving. The numbers have continued to decline since 2012. Since 2012, Barack Obama, the numbers have continued to decline. You don't never see them bring on people off the streets. Do you see CNN interview everyday Black folk in Roxbury, in the Bronx? Do you see this happen in Oakland? No, they bring on these people who are already well off financially. Charlamagne is doing very well financially. They're not talking to the Black poor people. They're not talking to low-income Black people. So you're not getting the full picture.
Donald Trump is absolutely that. We're talking about someone with 88 indictments, well, less the case that was just thrown out by his appointed judge. But Donald Trump is someone who needs to face his record. His record is filled with criminality long before he went through the White House doors. And I think that needs to be tried. It has not been adequately tried. I'm eager to see if there will be a debate between the two of them. But her campaign, I think, wrote out yesterday demonstrating that contrast. And I think that's exactly where they have to stay, in addition to demonstrating how it will be a win for voters to vote for Kamala Harris. So they need to know what they're voting against, certainly, but also what they're getting in voting for her.
What are you getting? So this is where we got to bring up, folks. What exactly are you getting from Kamala Harris? She has no platform. What are you getting? You see, once again, we have this situation where I think a lot of people that I've spoken to so far, they want to vote for, they're like, I want a female president. I heard this 2016 with Hillary too. I want a female president. They don't care about the policies, anything. Oh, I'm going to vote for it. And you're going to see a panel about this in just a second. Oh, I want to vote for her because she's Black. And some people have had some disagreement over that. There's been disagreements over the whole Black thing. But it's just, this is America. Like, nobody looking at policies, principles, and and then there are those that are voting against Donald Trump. Like, they may not love Kamala Harris, but they want to vote against Donald Trump. How did that work out for Joe Biden in 2020 when people were mainly voting against Donald Trump, right? What are we getting, Angela? What are we getting with Kamala? She didn't even tell you because she don't know.
Charlamagne, in your new book, you write,
And Jake, I don't even know if that's the right question. You know, people, asking if America's ready for a prosecutor. I mean, is America ready for, somebody with all of the criminal charges that Donald Trump has?
Right.
I mean, in most jobs, most convicted felons can't even, get those kind of jobs that Donald Trump is currently campaigning for.
They have to check
They
the
barely
box.
can get jobs at McDonald's. They barely can get jobs at McDonald's and Walmart. So it's weird. It's weird to have to say, is America ready for a prosecutor? No, is America ready to elect a criminal?
Joining us now.
So there's that, right? And the thing is, a lot of people, if you ask them, and I look at the polls, and I think I did a poll on this channel about this before too, a lot of Americans, they don't care. Eugene Debs ran for president from prison. A lot of them don't care about that when a lot of their focus is mainly the economy. People want the economy fixed. People want to be able to have a decent living in this country. And it has not been that way under the Biden administration. It's been tough. And I told you guys, I hated to admit this because I don't like Trump. I hated to admit that financially things were better for me under him. It killed me to admit that, like that kind of stuff just killed. That killed me. I was like, Gah! It killed me to admit it, but that was the reality. Now I'm going to show you this panel and you're just going to see, you got to see this. You've got to hear this. So this panel, and shout out to Roger for sending this to me. This is a panel here, and I don't know if this was a Zoom call or whatever. Anyway, it was a panel about Kamala Harris for president. And I want you to hear what one of these women is going to say about why she wants to support Kamala. Listen to this.
I'm going to just be real honest with this. She's a Black woman.
Yeah, because they stem folk, not Kim folk.
I think it goes back to what somebody was saying, where it's not voting for someone, but majority will vote for somebody else just.
Hold on. Let me line this out.
I think majority.
Is it only because she a Black woman?
Yeah.
Do you not see how that's a bad idea?
Elaborate.
Okay.
Before he elaborates, because he gets into the thick of it, I just got to say this. Do you see the problem? This is why we don't get anything as a community. This is why the Democratic Party doesn't do anything for us as a community, because they know we'll support them anyway because they're not the Republicans. And what I'm saying to you is that if you are choosing to go that route, you need to ask for some concessions, which as a Black community, we do not do. No Black agenda, no vote. Why is that even a bad thing to even mention? Other groups do this. Other groups say nothing for immigration, nothing for DACA. You're not getting our vote. Other groups do this. But for some reason, when it comes to the Black community, we don't do this. We don't ask for anything. Well, it's just crazy. And it's almost like some people feel like, oh no, I can't do that because I'm embarrassed to do. Why are you embarrassed? This party has done nothing for you. The communities have fallen apart. When I go back to visit family in Baltimore, it looks like someone dropped a bomb off in Baltimore. And it's looked that way since I was a kid. The parts of DC that have been renovated have been gentrified. So the Black neighborhoods in DC that were once Black are no longer that way, because once they improved the city, they increased the rent and other people moved in and those people were forced out. This is reality. This is real life. The school's still falling apart. Ain't nobody fixing nothing. Nothing. You know how many people I know that are either failed out, ended up in jail, or dead? That's my reality, fam. People don't understand this. People think that, oh, well, Sabby was a military kid, so she traveled. Yeah, I traveled, but my family is from Baltimore. We didn't have money. My parents grew up poor, dirt poor. And it just kills me that the same people, they've been voting for the same people, the same politicians, the same party, and nothing has improved for the Black community. Why you still, I walk down the street, why is there liquor store, pawn shop, turn around the corner, liquor store, pawn shop? I don't see that in the white communities. These were all Democrat ran. And this is not to say there aren't poor neighborhoods in red states. Red states can be poor too. But the Democratic Party as a whole is not offering things to the Black community that they're willing to offer to other groups. And that is because we are not demanding it and we just go out and support them anyway. Ain't that a damn shame? Joe Biden sat up there and he told you that he was going to cancel student loan debt for the students that went to HBCUs that were making under 125K. Didn't do it. People still want to line up and vote for the Democrat. Can you explain this to me? Don't do nothing for you, nothing for your community. I watch them do things for the Latino Americans. I watch them do things for the immigrant community when it comes to DACA. You see them doing things for a migrant community right now. And this is not to say don't do those things. What I am saying, though, is they're not doing nothing for us. And we be the first ones lined up to support them. So listen to this. So he explains things to her.
So we're in 3 proxy wars with some of the most powerful leaders in the world. She failed at the border, in which we have an estimation of 15 to 20 million people illegally into this country. That is literally overtaking and bankrupting Chicago to the tune of over $400 million per year, and they are in a deficit. Oakland is going out of business. San Francisco, ditto. California, $65 billion deficit. New York, they're literally cutting trash, in which they are the rattiest, dirtiest city, and they've taken up resources as far as free healthcare, free hotels to the tune of $600 a day. They're literally taking over your schools. Your taxpayer dollars are going to fund the migrant crisis. She was supposed to be in charge of this. We have a failing economy. Every single day I see people getting on the internet talking about $30 an hour is the new minimum wage because inflation is fucking out of control. At one point, it was at almost 10%, depending on what city that you in. She has no policy, no record to stand on. One of the biggest things that she did in her career was lock up more Black men than ever before. But we sitting here and vote her in office on identity politics. The very person that she was under as far as the president of the United States of America, she called him racist during a debate, which shows you how fake she is. And the only thing that we can stand on from a policy perspective is whether or not she's Black and she's a woman. We did that during the Obama administration, and he didn't do anything for Black people. As a matter of fact, y'all complain because the only person that he did, or the only group of people that he really stood for, is the alphabet community, and that's his landmark thing that he's still standing on today. So the only thing that we have to stand on is identity politics. That shit didn't work with Tiffany Henyard in Dayton, Illinois. It didn't work with Karen Bass. It didn't work with Lori Lightfoot in Chicago. It didn't work with Brandon Johnson that then took over her position in Chicago. It didn't work with Andre Dickens in Atlanta. It didn't work with Eric Adams in New York. It doesn't work across the country. Every single Democratic city is a hellhole. And we sitting here talking about identity politics?
And I can't disagree. I can't disagree because I see it too. Same thing with Boston. It doesn't matter who was elected as mayor. Like I said, you go to the Black communities that have not been taken over by gentrification fully yet. You go to the Black communities and you're just like, what the hell happened here? Nothing changed. So that's why I said again, like, we need to get concessions for our vote. And somehow that triggered a friend of mine, or who I thought was a friend of mine, that triggered them earlier today. And I've noticed something. Those who are a little bit more affluent can kind of shrug these things off. And then people wonder why more black people don't come out and vote. Because make no mistake, the turnout for Joe Biden was not necessarily because black people loved them some Joe Biden. It was because we didn't want Donald Trump. So you just don't get nothing. And everything is falling apart. You have a lot of black neighborhoods in the inner city that the life expectancy drops by like 20 years compared to the white neighborhood around the corner. The asthma rates are higher. Dirty water. And y'all just be running out and just signing up to continue to vote for people who ain't doing nothing for you. You're dying at a faster rate. More disease, more illness. Don't even let me get into the whole maternity issue. But we're bad people. I'm a bad person because I don't want to go out and support Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party. I'm seeing a lot of white commentators sit up here and say, you're foolish if you don't do this. It makes sense. This is what we need to do. And all those motherfuckers are millionaires. All of them. This is not their life. They can turn off the channel when they're done. They go back to their life of luxury. They don't have to think about these things. They don't have to deal with it. Some of us do. So all I'm asking, black people, get something for your vote. Because to me, it don't make no sense. It don't make no sense. So Barack Obama, and even this is fake, when he said it was all fake, what she did, it was an act. It was an act. Now this, Joe Biden was so bad. He was a segregationist and oh God, racist and da-da-da, but you went and worked for him. It was all a show. And this is a show too. Barack Obama and Michelle Obama finally endorsed Kamala Harris, but you can tell this is staged. Look.
Kamala.
Hello. Hi.
Hey there.
Oh, hi. You're both together. Oh, it's good to hear you both.
I can't have this phone call without saying to my girl Kamala, I am proud of you. This is going to be historic.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh my goodness. Michelle, Barack, this means so much to me. I am looking forward to doing this with the two of you, Doug and I both, and getting out there, being on the road. But most of all, I just want to tell you the words you have spoken and the friendship that you have given over all these years mean more than I can express. So thank you both. It means so much. And we're going to have some fun with this too, aren't we?
So, and that's just the thing to me, like even that you can tell it's staged, it's scripted. You know, people saw this on social media and they were like, oh my God, Obama finally endorsed. I'm definitely in now. That means it's a shoo-in. She's going to win in a landslide. Obama endorsed a lot of people. They didn't necessarily win. So it's just, I'm like, no platform, no policies. Let me make something very clear to you, fam. They don't even want to give, for all the people fighting for reparations, they don't even want to give you reparations. After they've repaired other groups. They don't want to give you anything. They don't, what is this? Because they know that you will continue to come out and support them. And that does not make me a Trump supporter. That does not make me a Republican. That is me speaking for what I have experienced and what I've seen for my people. Just as you have seen things for your people and your group, we all have things and concerns that need to be answered. And I just want Black people to make demands. That's all. Apparently that triggered someone. Like, damn, how dare you not support Kamala Harris? I don't know this woman. I'm seeing people coming out there defending her as if they're besties with Kamala Harris and she would never do that. Do you know, Kamala? It's really weird. The hero worshiping is already starting to happen, and it's not even September. Let's get to some of the comments and then we'll get to the final story, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, David. There was an attempt on Bush Jr. when a journalist threw his shoe at him. A dangerous weapon, that shoe is. I forgot about that. Thank you, Sparky. Sabby, don't you think after the assassination attempt, the people on the roof so sloped that it made whoever watched the video dizzy? Should be reprimanded for not wearing a safety harness? You're funny, Sparky. Thank you, Wasim. A true DEI hire is Van Jones. He says he does not know politics, but is on a CNN political panel. He doesn't know politics. They just select people and bring them on there. We'll get into all that in a second, though. Thank you, Michael. How come no one called Sarah Palin DEI? It wasn't even a thing back then. Like, I didn't even, I don't remember people saying DEI or DEI hire during that time. So it wasn't as big of a thing. Thank you for the super chat, Sparky. Kamala wasn't a DEI hire. She was a uniparty machine hire. And thank you for this, UMH, uniparty machine hire. Thank you, Wasim. Didn't Kamala have her handler tell her not to answer his questions and walk off Charlamagne's show? Yeah, that was when he said, who's running the country, Joe Biden or Joe Manchin? That one was funny. Thank you for this one as well, Wasim. I had a friend block me as I told her, be careful, Kamala Harris is no good, and showed her track APAC that she has over 5 million in donations. Kara in Arabic means shit. Oh my God. Thank you, Susanna. Sabby, just how much of the black vote do you think Kamala will get? Will blacks voting for her make the difference? Well, in the Democratic Party, you can't win without the black vote. Right now, in the most recent poll I saw, she's polling at about roughly 74-ish% for African-American voters. But we'll see if that holds. And that being said, don't forget, Hillary Clinton received 88% of the black vote in 2016, and she still lost. So don't forget that. Thank you, Mark. Whoopsie. Thank you, Mark. Sabby, when Kamala was running for the nomination in 2020, she had to have a conference call to decide what she believed in. She flip-flopped too. Because when she first announced she was running, she said she was for Medicare for all. And then later on, she flipped from that. So did Pete Buttigieg. Thank you, Sparky. Governor Kemp went against Trump in 2020. Forgot about that. I think he did. Thank you, Courtney. Of course, Charlamagne the servant would endorse Kamala. Everyone remembers how she little boyed him on his show 2 years ago back. It was expected. Thank you, Kenman. Crystal and Sagar think Charlamagne is brilliant. That's because Charlamagne tells them what they want to hear. It's just a reality. Charlamagne used to work at the local radio station in Columbia, South Carolina, like when I was in college there. That's where he came from. He was a radio host in Columbia, and then he got the job with the Wendy Williams show when it was a radio show before she went to talk show format. And he went to work for her in New York, and that's where he got the come up. Thank you, Wasim. Sabrina 28 sounds good and amazing. Oh no, no, I'd pull my hair out if I was in politics because they wouldn't keep me there long. Thank you, Kyle. Preach, Sabrina. I grew up in DC in the 1970s, and none of our people are there now. No. A lot of these neighborhoods have changed. Thank you, Kenman. Palestinians are suffering from polio. 1,000 in the street protesting and nothing changes. Nobody cares. Time to embrace nihilism. I don't embrace nihilism. I mean, I still always, fight for what I can do locally. I organize locally, and I highly encourage all of you to organize in your communities. That's why when all this election stuff is over with, I always still have something to go back to because I still do organizing. I actually have an event coming up soon that I'll tell you guys about later. Thank you for the super sticker, Deeply Cynical. Thank you, Where is the Love? Philadelphia's first black mayor allowed a bomb to be dropped. Yep. In an all black middle class neighborhood, May 13th, 1985. This is true. Thank you, Sparky. I'd rather have a liquor store and a pawn shop instead of a Costco and a bank, because at least I know the owners from the neighborhood. Bring back small businesses. And thank you, Kenman. Seeing Netanyahu get standing ovations, I give up the fight. The good guys lost. I'm sorry to hear that, Kenman. I don't give up the fight. I'm still like, hanging in there. Thank you, Chris C. Dems, once again, their whole ass moment, they rehabbed Robert Byrd and Strom Thurmond. We're supposed to condemn these people, not support. That's right. Thank you, Samantha. Her website doesn't even have any policies, just asking for donations. Yeah, I looked at it earlier. Thank you, Courtney. But the candidates that won who were endorsed by Obama's were the worst. There you go. Thanks, Sparky. Maybe not always from the neighborhood, but at least know the owners in the store. Thank you. I know myself. Please interview Dr. Hassan Johnson. I think someone else sent me this as well. I'll have to remember that. And thank you, Sparky. Michelle agreed to make the call to make up for not running herself. She already sacrificed and paid her dues in the fishbowl for 8 years and isn't interested. Yeah, I know a lot of people wanted Michelle to run. Thank you, Miriam. No matter who's running, no matter what color, race, or gender, the Democratic and Republican parties will continue to use our tax no money to support Israel. I hear you. Thank you so much for that. And I'll take the comment on Rockfin. Thank you, Roger. I warned people 2 years ago. Thank you. We'll see that once we get around this time, people will lose their ever-loving mind and how imperative it was to push CBIs for 2024 ballot, because it's always around this time policy goes out the window and emotion takes over. The only way to get people to vote on policy is to put it before them. Single payer, public bank, worker co-op, minimum wage, etc. Unfortunately, I failed. Oh, you didn't fail, Roger. You didn't fail. We're still talking about the ballot initiatives, but I hear you. Okay, we got one more story for you folks, and that is corporate media, CNN and Fox News. I really want to hear your take on this, how they are talking about this election, in particular, Kamala Harris. I know it's another Kamala story, but I have a point here. I think that liberal media and conservative media are speaking about Kamala Harris's candidacy in a way that is actually helping the other side, whether they realize they're doing it or not. I just don't think it's constructive. And we're going to start with Fox News really quick. Go ahead and smash that like button if you haven't had a chance to do so. So we're going to start with Fox News. There was a comment here, and let's just get to it. I will say this: if you are going to try to convince people not to vote for Kamala Harris, I think you got to focus on her record and you have to focus on her policies, which right now she ain't got no damn policies. So you're going to have to focus on her record, not doing things like this. And I think this is a bad idea. Listen.
Yeah, and then there's the DEI press secretary telling you that the DEI vice president is the future of the party here. And so the future looks kind of dim for the Democrats here, but this is no shocker either. Kamala Harris, she's the original Haktua girl. That's the way she got where she is. And the party's going downhill if it's in her hands.
That was tough. That was harsh.
That was bad. And let me explain why this is problematic. Number one, to the conservatives, I think this audience is pretty mixed. To the conservatives out there, the DEI thing, that is not helping Donald Trump. Calling her a DEI hire and all these other people DEI hires, that does not help Donald Trump's campaign. That actually helps Kamala Harris's campaign. Because like I said, if you're going to come at her, focus on her record. And I think it's funny, Vivek Ramaswamy tweeted something about this earlier as well. He's like, what are you guys doing? Because this ain't it. This ain't it. We all know about Willie Brown and all that stuff, and I've talked about it, but I'm also, again, I'm not running for office. We've talked about these things, but I think when you focus on those things and you don't focus on her record, it makes it seem like you have nothing else to criticize about her record. So you're going after personalized attacks. And I think that's a bad idea. I don't think that's going to work out too well. So FYI with that one, not a good idea. 2, the DEI thing. We all need to take a step back and remember where this came from. It was billionaire Bill Ackman that started this whole DEI hire trend. He started it against the Harvard University professor because he was angry because she did not stop the protest against Israel on campus, and because there were students that wrote that letter that said that Israel is responsible for what has happened to the Palestinian people. You guys all remember this, right? That came from Bill Ackman, who is a billionaire, who funds Harvard. He donates to it. It's his alma mater. His daughter also attends Harvard. So he was able to get the message going on social media. I saw all this happen in real time. He wrote a letter to the university. Next thing you know, Claudine Gay was pushed to step down. Other university presidents were pushed to step down or were pushed to cave to Israel. So we all need to remember where this came from. So when you make that statement that someone is a DEI hire, you got to remember who else you are turning off when you make that statement, because especially the younger people, they know that came from Bill Ackman. That is not a winning strategy. So Fox News there with the Hawk Tuah thing. And the female commentator, she did say, wow, that was brutal, but she also didn't say, I don't think we need to go there. You see what I mean? This is not going to help the Republican Party. Now there's more, because we're going to go there. That being said, there's another clip from Fox News that I do think needs to be debunked. And this is a message that I'm giving to liberal media. You guys, you ran with the story, and you guys need to retract this, because this is not how you win. What did I say time and time again? If you want to beat Donald Trump, you got to do it at the ballot box. You don't do it this way. So Brian Kilmeade, who, if I remember correctly, is from Long Island, Brian Kilmeade made a comment here about Kamala Harris, and it has been completely taken out of context. People thought he said one word, but he actually said another word. And he has come back and he has explained this, and people still today on social media are lying about what was said. That is not going to help Kamala Harris campaign. Let's get to it. Listen to this.
Obviously, you compare him to President Biden, who was muddling his way through speeches. People know he couldn't go more than
better, right?
Yep, couldn't go more than 15 minutes. She's very good on the prompter. No one even doubted that. She had 3,000 people there. Why are they there? A lot of them have to do with, hey, I'm a Democrat. I thought we were going to go down in flames. Now we have a shot. The problem with Kamala Harris, number one, she has not had her record exploited heavily because people thought and marginalized her. Even in the Democratic Party, they said, wow, what a bad choice Joe Biden made. Number two is she hasn't sat down for an interview. When she sits down in an interview and says, do you want to fund ICE? Where do you stand on Medicare for all? Why didn't you show up? The most recent decision, already you got a question. She will not.
Pause. So this is where I can make a correction. Kamala Harris does not support Medicare for all. Even in her ad campaign that was just released, she said affordable access. She does not support Medicare for all. So this is another lie that is being told by conservative media. Again, if you guys are going to lie on candidates, like that means you don't have enough to attack, or you haven't done your research and you haven't gone after her record. He started off talking about the record and then he pivoted to Medicare for all. Kamala Harris has never endorsed and supported Medicare for all post 2020 presidential campaign. And she pivoted during her presidential campaign in 2020. So this is the problem I'm having with corporate media covering these elections. That's why you guys got me, because you don't have to lie to turn people away from a candidate.
Not show up for the prime minister's joint session of Congress today. She'd rather address in the summer a sorority, a college sorority.
Okay, that's the part right there. We'll play it again, and then I have a slow-mo. People think that he said she didn't go to the Netanyahu thing. She'd rather address a colored sorority. And when you hear it, it can kind of sound like that. But when I slow it down, let's listen to it again. And then I'll let you listen to the slowed down version so you can hear it yourself.
Already you got a question. She will not show up for the prime minister's joint session of Congress today. She'd rather address in the summer a sorority, a college sorority, like she can't get out of that. So that's her decision, and that's her decision to back up the protesters.
And how about the border? When they ask her about the border, I haven't been to Europe either. Remember, she said that she's the border czar. She didn't go to the president. She didn't go to the border, and now we're learning that two of the border chiefs, the last two border chiefs, she hasn't talked to.
Okay, so what did he actually say? Because people, even today, after he has corrected this, people are still saying, "I'm sorry, a colored sorority." That is not what he said. Let's listen to it here. For the hard of hearing that are saying the words were college sorority. So I've slowed it down for you and you can clearly hear him say colored. That is not what I hear. Watch this.
Dress in the summer a sorority, a college sorority.
So what you are hearing here, and for anyone I think that is from that area of New York City, Long Island, they have little different accents or whatever. It is obvious that his accent is coming into play here. I listened to this over and over. The word was college. Do you guys really think he would say a colored sorority? And you got the black guy sitting right there next to him, who was also a host of Fox News. Now, some of you probably think, well, yeah, he would say it. Yeah, I don't think so. Brian Kilmeade's an ass. He's a jerk, but Brian Kilmeade also knows how to keep his damn job. So that's the kind of thing that drove me crazy. And people are still spreading this lie.
Like she can't get out of that.
So he comes back and he apologizes, or tries to apologize, but also trying to explain to people that was not what he said. So I think, let me come back up here, pull this out.
See the headline, start throwing things out. It disparages me, disparages his company. And I give special credit to people like you, Lawrence, for media relations, for going aggressively, Media-Eye for coming back, Dana Perino for weighing in, you guys also, Janice Dean, for people that Megyn Kelly, people just all of a sudden, I was trying to do the radio show, listening to these live press conferences, trying to get the FBI, and I didn't really realize how big this was until I got off. But then I went to Outnumbered yesterday while I'm going through this, and I'm seeing how big this became. And I just think it's a learned moment for everyone on the couch, everyone watching. From now on, things have changed. Yeah. Since Kamala Harris is running, they're looking to label anyone, anytime, a racist, sexist, misogynist. I'm not going to back off anything I say. I think it was a huge mistake of going to a college sorority instead of the prime minister's address. And I'm not going to apologize for it. But people who are in the media should be responsible when they report things.
Well, Brian.
And this guy right here, the black guy sitting down on the couch, he came forward also on social media and he said, I was sitting right there. He said college. So this is another one of those things where I have to say this. You thought you heard one thing. Okay. He has came forward publicly and said what he said. The other people said, no, that's not what he said. We were sitting right there. But my problem is, again, liberal media did not correct it. That's why people are still retweeting the video, still saying the same thing. So again, if you want to win, you don't need to lie in order to win. So come back and make the correction. That's the right thing to do. I would say the same thing if it was the other way around. Come back and make the correction. That's the right thing to do. Again, you're trying to continue it, I think, to help Kamala, but this is ridiculous because when he came forward and explained what he was saying, and his other coworkers said, yeah, that's not what you said. Now it makes liberal media look bad. And people look at that and they're like, well, wait a minute, you guys are just lying about things to help Kamala's campaign. So this is what I don't like when it comes to these elections. Like, just keep it real. Focus on the policies. Stop focusing on all this personal shit. And that's how we got here. It didn't used to be like this. You guys remember, it didn't used to be like this. I used to watch like candidates debate and it was actually based on policy or like their record. Now everything is all about all this tit for tat, personal BS. I don't care. This is a surefire way. Both sides are doing it, by the way. Conservative media and liberal media. So he continues here.
I started the show off yesterday warning Americans that this would be the most intense racialized election there is, and they're going to use it. Anything that we say, even if it's true or not true. The sad part is I don't know if there's this massive conspiracy that they think that Fox is just ran just by white people. We have crew members here, people in the control room that are black. We were all on set yesterday, and I think it's insulting to all of us that if something like that were said on here, that we would just all be cool with it. That's not the way that it's worked.
And that's what he wrote about you. He said, as a black man,
as a black man, why would you sit there and let it happen? The reason why I sat there, because Brian said college, and then right after the thing that was missed about that conversation, there was a spirited conversation after that between our stage manager saying, this is why she decided to go to there. There's voters there. But all of that was missed in the moment because they wanted to run with the lie. And by the way, the damage has already been done. I mean, these clips are still floating around in my community and everywhere of people saying that it's okay.
And by the way, your name is Lawrence Jones, not the black man on the couch. Correct. All right, and that's the other thing. And
you challenged him to a debate.
So you guys see what's happening here. So that's my take on all of this. Like, make the correction because otherwise it looks bad. And it's true. I saw it on social media. The guy was saying, like, everybody's saying, why didn't you say anything as the black guy sitting there? He was like, because he said college. What are you doing? So they need to correct that. They need to correct that. That is a doozy. Liberal media needs to correct that one. That was a hot take. And I also think that conservative media, they need to correct this hawk to a girl thing and like calling her a hawk to a girl and focusing on that bullshit. Again, that it does not, you're not focusing on the right things. I don't know what to do. You're not focusing on the right things. And then we go to CNN. Now, CNN, they're talking about the DEI hire as well. And Van Jones, the guy who claims that he doesn't know politics, but is always invited into these damn spaces. I want you to hear what he starts to say about what black men are going to do. Listen to this.
It's the DEI hire part first, and then it's the record. But they can't help themselves but going at the race part of this.
Let me just say something here.
Please do.
This is going to work out badly because they worked very hard to attract black men into the Republican Party. They worked very hard to attract Latin men into the Republican Party. And they were getting a little bit of momentum there. There were a lot of black men who were saying, no, Democrats don't do anything for us, and Biden's weak, and they're starting to look over there at the Republican Party. You start insulting black women, you're going to see something you haven't seen before. Black men are not going to put up with that. I want to send a warning, as clear as I can. I was on a phone call with 20,000 black men.
Pause. So is that necessarily true? Let's go back to Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams was getting insults all over the place. And in turn, she decided to insult black men. She was accusing them before it was even time to vote that they weren't going to show up for her. And they still showed up for her. But apparently white women didn't. And that's why Stacey Abrams lost, you know? So this part here where he says that the Republican Party is trying to recruit black men, it's always interesting. They always put the blame on black men as if there are no black female Republicans, which you're going to meet, by the way. I'm putting together a black voter panel. We're going to have Trump voters on here. We're going to have Kamala voters on here, or supporters, I should say. Election hasn't happened yet. We're going to have third-party supporters on here, and we're going to have people on here who are voting for the damn couch. And I'm going to do that because I want you to hear from people from all different political ideologies so that people can understand Black people are not a monolith, particularly when we're talking about electoral politics. All of us are not Democrats. So I want people to hear what are the different concerns and why people are supporting the people that they're supporting. Let's get back to this thing, what he said about the Black men.
The word protect came up about 1,000 times. Protect this sister. Protect this sister. We're going to protect her. Protect her. You're about to see something you haven't seen before. Look, people messed around with Hillary Clinton and said a bunch of mean stuff to her. Black men set that out. We won't set this out. So I don't think that the Republican Party understands that all the work that they did trying to get us over there, two more days of this, it's going to be a problem.
Look, and
so, and this is what I want to say something here to the conservatives out there. The DEI thing isn't hidden it. The calling Kamala Harris a DEI hire, that only helps Kamala Harris. That does not help Donald Trump. I think even Vivek Ramaswamy is talking about that now. He's like, yo, stop focusing on that. Like, the best thing to do is to focus on her record. And I don't know when this debate is supposed to happen. Apparently, Donald Trump is backed out of the debate. And then I saw another headline today that said now Kamala's backed out of the debate. So I don't even know if they're going to debate in September after all anymore. But that being said, it seems like they're both kind of running away now. It's really weird. But I would hope that when they would have this debate, it would be focused on policy and it would be focused on their record, not all this other stuff. But the DEI hire thing, you got to remember where that came from. That came from the Zionist billionaire, Bill Ackman. Never forget that.
Strategy is in part also to draw a wedge between Black men and Black women, which if you listen to Van, he's saying that's not going to work. But that is the strategy, is to say, oh, they're so focused on women, Black women. They're not focused on you.
Let me ask this.
Well, no, the media is drawing the wedge between Black men and Black women. You guys are doing that, Abby. You guys are the ones that are trying to draw like this wedge between us and saying, oh, it's the Black men who won't support Kamala Harris and the women are going to come out and support her. That's you guys doing that. Not you're talking about the conservatives are drawing that wedge. No, it's not. It's the media. It's the media. It's not the Republican Party. It's you guys. Every time I turn around, whether it's you or Joy Reid, D.L. Hughley, you guys are the ones going out there saying, oh, those Black men don't want to get on board. Roland Martin, damn you Black men, you better show up and support Kamala Harris. You guys are the ones that are doing that. And this also is not going to help Kamala Harris. Putting blame on Black men because they're not jumping to your beat, instead of actually talking to those men and asking them what they want in a candidate, that is not going to help Kamala Harris's campaign. Crazy.
Question, though, because the people on this call that you're talking about were a subset of the population. And one could argue we're a subset of the population that you didn't have to worry about in the first place. Because these margins are so crazy. Democrat math requires you basically to get 105% of Black people to vote for them in order for them to get elected. So if this goes from 90% of Black men voting for the Democrats to 80, which is still 4 out of 5, which is still overwhelming, you still got a problem. So I agree with you that there is a significant portion of this population that is doing that. The question is really more so the people who are tied into the YouTube algorithms that tie a little bit too much in these notions of masculinity. How are you going to reach them on this one?
So now he's blaming the manosphere. You guys familiar with the manosphere on YouTube? That's where he's putting the blame. That gentleman there, he's saying that it's the manosphere that's trying to pull the Black men away from the Democratic Party. I don't know. I mean, from my conversations, it seems like it's not getting anything tangible from the Democratic Party. It's the economic issues, which I warn people about. And I've been saying for so many times, the economic issues are going to be the big problem.
Like Stacey Abrams in Georgia, I think is the great example about what was the Black male support for her or the lack thereof when it came down to it.
I think this is going to wind up being a little.
And he's wrong. So see, this is what I'm talking about. It's you guys. Stacey Abrams received over 80% support from African American men. You know who failed Stacey Abrams, who did not come out to support her? It was white women. I talked about it on this show. I showed the polls. He is incorrect. This is what I'm talking about. Here we go again with blaming other genders and other people. It's black men's fault. That's why they're not winning. Stop doing that. Like, where I come from, blaming the voters doesn't get your votes. I don't know about you guys, but that's how it is where I come from.
A little bit different because I think that the when you see black women moving the way they're moving, you had 40,000 on a phone call last night. I think the level of social pressure on black men to stand up this time, because this is not against some weirdo, governor. This is about Donald Trump. And so I think, there will be some black men who peel away, but I think that motion is going to be frozen. I think to the extent that if it just stayed Joe Biden, I think you're just seeing a big flow of black men. I think you're going to see black men freeze and begin to move back because
black men freeze? Do you guys hear this? Listen to this.
Despicable Joe and his hoe, that stuff that's starting to bubble up, that is not going to work.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know what's interesting to me? The way that they talk about black men on here as voters, it's really kind of disgusting, because my whole thing is, I'm obviously not a black man, but if I was a black man and I was sitting here listening to this, I'd be like, well, damn, I wasn't sure who I was going to vote for, but I definitely don't want to come out and support Kamala now. And they're talking about all the money. They're talking about all the money that was raised for Kamala. I sure as hell wish people would raise that amount of money for mutual aid. I sure as hell wish all those people would get together on a phone call and raise that amount of money to help out black communities and help out some of these schools and put food on the table for people, provide clothing and food and the things that we do around here. We do mutual aid. So that's what's crazy to me. That's what really pisses me off. All of you guys can come together and put up all this money for a freaking presidential candidate. But when people ask you to help out in the community and to donate to actually give back and uplift the black community, y'all are silent. And that's what makes me so furious. Kamala Harris raised all this money overnight for a campaign. This is historic. Where's all those people to help out the black community? Where's all those people to raise money to help these kids have food on the table? Where are you? You're nowhere to be found. So you see what I'm saying? It's not about the community. It's about an individual. And I don't like that. So some of these people, Roland Martin and Van Jones and all this stuff, you're not really trying to uplift the black community. You're trying to uplift an individual. You found a hero, so to speak. That's what you're trying to do. Because you could have taken all of that money and you could have put that money into the black community, but you putting it over into a campaign of someone who probably will lose any damn way. Bernie Sanders raised over $100 million for his 2020 campaign. Some of that money came from me. And I told myself I would never do that again. Do you know what we could have done with $100 million to help people in this country? Money down the drain. That's the problem that I have. But Yvette Carnell really hit the message on the head here with Van Jones. This is funny. And we do not care, Van Jones. You are not an expert political commentator, nor do you have your ear to the ground when it comes to our community. You are the green jobs guy who, for reason unbeknownst to me, got elevated to head Negro whisperer in charge. Oh my God, that's good. You are soggy and your takes are devoid of any serious analysis. Say whatever you want, it won't matter. And she was retweeting this where Van Jones said, I said what I said. Will black men protect Kamala Harris? Jesus Christ. But peep this, fam. I want to sum up this segment with this because Rome had something really good to say. And it's true, right? So some of you have seen, you've noticed that some of the people that were pro-Palestine and said genocide was a red line and they would not support the Biden campaign, all of a sudden, just like that, hopped over to Kamala Harris, even though Kamala Harris has the same talking points as Biden when it comes to Gaza and has the same mentality. So Rome made this video. I want you to hear what Rome said about that and why this is happening and why you really need to pay close attention about infiltration and how some of these people move. Listen to this. This is my comrade Rome from RBM. Watch this.
Someone had asked me, am I surprised to see some of these pro-Palestine accounts, the same ones with the watermelon emoji in their bio, the same ones who probably marched underground with you, push for Kamala Harris? And the answer to that is no. That is one of the most important jobs for an American liberal to have. Hide behind oppressed people, invade their communities and their spaces, and then turn around and use those very same spaces and communities against those very same people. If you are politically aware, then you should know that we don't even have to go that far back to get a good example. Like, for instance, when Joe Biden got in office and Black Lives Matter stopped marching. Police brutality continued to happen, but the marching, the protesting, the rioting, it stopped.
Yep.
And that's just one of the communities that they had invaded. I mean, look at Occupy Wall Street. The same people that was standing with the natives with Standing Rock is against land back. And now the same liberals telling you to defund the police is now telling you to vote for a cop. So, no, I'm not surprised. Not only because I'm politically aware, it's because it's a tale as old as time. Malcolm X already taught you about this. He already explained the wolf versus the fox. Why don't you get it?
I highly recommend going back and reading some of Malcolm X's work and watching some of the old Malcolm X videos on YouTube. They're still there. Like, there's a lot of people that have like collections. I think there's one channel that just has all Malcolm X speeches. Watching some of those things because Malcolm X did try to warn people that this would be an issue. But let's see that poll. How do you feel about the way the media is covering Trump and Kamala? Do you approve of this? We have 1,502 votes. 4% of you said yes. 77% said no. Wow, this is shockingly higher than I thought it would be. 77% of you said no. 6% said I agree with some of it. And 13% of you said you haven't decided. That's interesting. I thought I agree with some of it would have had a higher number, but no, like 77% of you said no. Awesome. Great times, guys. All right, let me go ahead to the comments here. I think I'm going to read the super chats here as well. By the way, guys, this Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern time, Lee Camp will be here. Should be a fun time. Got some things to say. Thank you for the super chat. I know myself. Bibi is fighting 3 wars, bad economy. Israel is dying. Yes. Thank you, The Traveler. Lee Atwater said around the lines of you can't outright say the N-word, so you have to use coded words like busing and state rights. Paraphrasing. Thank you, Cloudness. Blacks don't care that Kamala succeed to succeed. Oh my God. Thank you, Penny. I met and hugged a lovely Gazan family at the zoo today after my Christian aunt who believes Bibi warned me my free pal cape offends Jays. Interesting. Your free Palestine cape. Thank you, Sparky. DEI got played out fast. It is a useless dog whistle. Using it makes people give themselves away as out of touch while thinking they're with it. And thank you for this as well. Kilmeade's too young to have the word colored in his day-to-day vernacular. Right. Like, to me, that just didn't make sense. That's why I was like, let's see if he responds to this. Overrated Yacht said, hide your couches. Thank you, Kenman. Van Jones said Kim Kardashian is a brilliant lawyer. Oh my God. Thank you, Roger. Black people do policy once they realize Republican and Democrats are racist, both parties. And thank you, H. Dennis, sorry. As a Black man, under no circumstances will I be supporting Trump. The end. And thank you, Sparky. Actually, the Republican Party is notorious for not reaching out to Black men or women. Please, people forget, Lincoln was a Republican. Republicans could at least lean into that. Maybe they're starting to. I've never been approached by Republicans, actually. Like, I know people that are Republicans. I have friends that are Republicans, but I've never been approached by a Republican, anyone that said, hey, come join the Republican Party. No. That's never happened. Rockfin, and then we'll head out. I'll do Wisconsin on Sunday. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. Black folks more caught up in this than the fact that Cam don't support Cam don't support reparations or her criminal justice records. Yeah, I mean, that's why I say focus on the policies. On Sunday, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be finishing up the ballot initiatives with Wisconsin. That is the last result for 2023. And then Tuesday evening, we will be starting the 2024 ballot measures. If you're in a BI state, we'll go through the list of BI states. Stay tuned, because I'm pretty sure there's some things coming up for you. Roger has been preparing those for me, and he said there's some cool things coming up. So stay tuned. All right, guys, that is it for me tonight. I hope you have a great weekend. I'll be here Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern with Lee Camp. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.